Yeah, I think we're good. Hello, world.
Oh boy, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, a moment. All right. Ta-da. Okay. Oh, hold on. Let me turn off. Actually, you know what? I'm going to keep the input display on because why not? Let me do this, though. There we go. Now that should look better. Okay. So, hi, everybody. 20 viewers. That's pretty sick. So, welcome to Custom Map Awards 2017. Gonna do the intro spiel here. I did this last year. It's to highlight custom maps, give recognition for people who are still putting in lots of effort, making lots of cool maps. It's been 6 years now that Dust Force has been out. There's been tons of maps released, tons of good ones. It's kind of still crazy that this game is even alive. Thank you, MSG, because probably wouldn't be alive without you. And yeah, new content, new competition spaces, whatever, like frequently, like almost daily, is pretty insane. I think on average we almost get 2 maps a day, which is really crazy. So yeah, we sorted them into categories, and there's an overall category at the end. Um, I'm going to post the whole list on Reddit, which will have links to the atlas to download the map in all the categories and all the rankings, and it also has the name of the map and the name of the map maker, the user who made the map. For each of the categories, I probably liked other things about the maps in the categories, and so did Timmy. Timmy's here with me, by the way. So,
Hello.
so Timmy also does his own show. It's like weekly, sort of,
Yeah, weekly on Sunday nights.
where he goes over the custom maps of that week and gives his thoughts on them, playing through them, and giving feedback and things like that. You do it more like aimed at the map maker if they're watching too, to like how you could make the map better and things like that, right?
Yeah, I try to give constructive criticism, or say things I like, don't like. The goal was a lot of times on Atlas, maps that are really good don't get as much feedback in the comments, sometimes in Discord, but I really feel like it was a travesty that some of the really awesome maps didn't get as many comments. So that's kind of how it started.
I would probably agree with that. So yeah, I think that's really cool, and I'm sure any of the map makers who have been in your chat and things like that, I'm sure they can attest that uh, more feedback is pretty much always helpful, and people actually really like to hear feedback, even if it's negative sometimes. That's not always a bad thing. Anyway, so if we combined our lists, we made separate lists. We went through every single map of the year separately and made our own lists of in the categories and ranked them, and then we smushed them together and combined them even at the last minute, which is why we're late. I'm really sorry. I should have planned time better, but I'm bad at things. And so it was hard enough getting this out and like ready and finished in the month of January. Okay, so just let that be an example of how bad we are at scheduling time to figure things out. And we'll probably do things different next year to like hopefully alleviate that. But yeah, sorry. Um, but yeah, if we mention the map in a category, like for example, our first category is going to be art. We probably liked it for like gameplay and other things, and like secrets and other stuff. But we're just
Right.
like focusing on it for the art because that's like the thing it like really stood out to us in. So yeah, don't think we're like we only like this map for the art and the rest of it's garbage. We hate this map. Don't ever play it. No, no, no. Play all these maps. Literally, like every single map in here is amazing. Go play all of them. Okay.
Yeah.
With that being said, we went through over the course of the year. There was 611 maps total released in 2017. The start was The Climb by Timmy, and the end was Pink Fluorite by Kitar, who got in like in the last few remaining hours of December 31st. And so, with our first category being art, would you like to start with the honorable mention? Actually, no, hold on. We'll save the honorable mention for later. I forgot about that. Okay, never mind. Ignore me. Uh, Timmy, would you like to start with number 10 in art?
Yeah. So number 10 is Dustworth Park. I'm assuming they can see it. You're pulling up replays, right,
I'm
as we
pulling up
go?
the replays. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, this is one that we kind of talked about back and forth because it's a single screen map, but it's also kind of a concept map. It was in a CMR, and it was really, really cool and really, really fun and really hilarious. Twinkie, this is by Twinkie, by the way. He did a great job. Um, with this map. I liked the gameplay was, I think, secondary to everything else, but I really enjoyed it. Any thoughts on the map?
Sorry, I had to turn the sound on. I forgot about that. Oh, I'm probably gonna need to balance the sound against you. That's complicated. This is stuff I should have done ahead of time.
Oh, as in sound, as in the game sound, not our sound?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay, that should be good. Hopefully you guys can still hear Timmy and still hear the game sound. I tried my best. Okay, anyway, yeah. I played in this CMR. This is one of the few CMRs that I did. And yeah, this was pretty hilarious to be surprised by. I think everyone who played can attest to the struggle of Dustworth killing you at the end. Alright, number 9. In art, we have Firewatch by Timmy. So, I will talk about this one because Timmy's going to be biased. This is the best map ever. I love every single Timmy map. They're all the greatest maps ever made. Something along those lines. But yeah, if you guys have played Firewatch, which I don't think either of us actually have, but this looks really similar to Firewatch in the background, and just the color palette and things, and it's a pretty long map as well. Like, this must have been a lot of work to make a map this long.
Are you watching the replay right now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't know if my stream's just lagging. I don't see it on my stream.
It's such a cozy looking map. Alright, would you like to take us away for number 8?
Yeah, number 8 was Quartz by C, and this is another one that we went back and forth on because it does use some Dust mod scripting stuff, and I think even Bird wanted to add it in the overall category, so it really could have fit in a lot of places, but I thought the outline of the character was really cool. C does a lot of this outlining stuff, but this is the first time I've ever seen it on the actual player. And the gameplay and everything about it was really solid.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say. I liked it a lot. Even though it's somewhat minorly cheating with Dust mod, I think that's okay. I can forgive it, because it's a really cool effect, and it looks really sick. Alright, number 7. We have Aether by Glime. And yeah, just the background on this map, super cool. I've made a map like this, although it didn't look anywhere near as pretty as this. The detail and the amount of layers in the background is pretty crazy. And it also just looks comfy.
Yeah, it's got a pretty extensive secret too, so if you explore, you can see a lot more of the art that's not mentioned in the, or not seen in the replay, but yeah, it's really nice.
I think that's what Dust Force Heaven looks like. Alright, go ahead with number 6.
Yep. So number 6 was Junk City by C. C, once again, making another, taking another place on this list. I thought this map had amazing background. It was extraordinarily beautiful and well done. The reason this one, we decided to put this on art as opposed to the overall, which I don't know if it was mentioned, but if it usually appears in one place, it's not going to appear anywhere else. So we just kind of went with what we felt was the strongest aspect, but I think you did mention that. But I thought the gameplay kind of took a back seat here. There were parts where it was really awkward, and it was a little hard to see, but the art, I think it's hard to argue that the art wasn't beautiful. Everything about it, the prop work, the parallaxing, the fog trigger, like, you can kind of just see for yourself here.
I think especially making a map that has like the dust block tiles as a background tile is really hard to still make things visible, and this is one of the very few maps that I've seen that made things still pretty visible, which is appreciated, of course. I got a Discord ping? Oh, I know why.
Yeah, single screens were this year in about February, I think.
And yeah, we do have a single screen category as well. Sorry, I'm fixing things. All right, number 5. We have Airships by Hydrajo? Hydrajo? Something like that. And yeah, these are pretty cool. These, I can't remember the name of the movie, but there was a Disney movie that had these kind of like airships. Is it Treasure Planet, Treasure Island, something like that? That these reminded me a lot of. And used these fire textures, I think, pretty cool in burning the ship and breaking apart and things like that. And there's little engines. And yeah, this map is pretty neat.
Yeah, Treasure Planet was an awesome movie. But yeah, I thought the ships were really creative in the background. And this map was really awesome. Yeah. So it's hard. Sorry, with the delay, it's a little hard. But
yeah,
I think you're ready for the next
generally,
one.
you can go because like it's a 20-second delay, and the maps are only like 20, 50 seconds or whatever. Unless it's super long, you should be good.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So yeah, next up was Sunset. So we're at number 4 right now.
Yep.
Sorry. Sunset Rooftops by Mirk, not Sunset Mirk. And you know, it's when you think of Mirk maps, you often think of maps I think like this, where you know they're absolutely gorgeous. But that's not to say that he's predictable at all. As I'm sure you'll see later on, his maps are you know, they explore, I think, every realm of possibility. But I really like the gameplay on this one, and the art. This is one that I was debating putting in the overall category. The backdrops are absolutely beautiful. The sunset with you know, behind the clouds, it all works really well.
Yeah, I think part of like what makes Mirk maps always look different from each other, even if they're sort of like the same theme. Like he makes a lot of force maps, but every one of them looks really different from each other. I think he kind of like sources the way he makes the art on his maps by a separate picture, like a real life picture or something, or from another game. And I think that's a really good way that he makes everything have its own kind of like visual aesthetic. All right, number 3, we have Burning City by Sea. To me, this almost looks like it could be in like Dark Firewatch. I don't know if that makes any sense, but the color palette, this map, it feels warm playing this map, even though it's kind of dark. Yeah, super cool map. Gotta love it.
I think that's a good way to put it. It feels warm.
It feels warm.
Yeah, this was an early C map, if I remember, like one of his first ones where he started exploring stuff. And it was a good introduction, I think, for me into like what to expect from C down the road. This really has been a really strong year for him, and he makes awesome maps. Okay, so number 2, so second place in the art category is, oh man, you gave me the hard one to say. Ophiuchus.
I think it was
Woodlands.
like Ophiuchus or something. Yeah.
Ophiuchus Woodlands by Mirk. If I remember correctly, this is based on an Ori level or something like that. At least that's what I was told. I could have been, you know, being trolled or something. But yeah, it was a single screen, so we debated once again putting it in a single screen. It was a really, really pretty map. There was a little bit of FPS issues for, I think, a number of people in that CMR. But overall, I think it was one of those things like you kind of forgive it because it's just so pretty to look at. And yeah, I thought it was extraordinarily beautiful, every aspect of it.
Yep. It's a map that you could use as a wallpaper, which actually there are a lot of maps that you could use as a wallpaper that look good, but this is like among the top ones, I think. All right. At number 1 for art, we have Emerald City by Sea. I don't even know what to say about C because he kind of just like came out of nowhere, I feel like, and just started making a ton of maps, and a ton of them are really good, and a ton of them have a really cool art style to him. He kind of like has his own art style almost, that he sort of figured out. And yeah, yeah, this map is just really pretty. The green on the fog trigger is a little bit heavy. I don't know how else to describe that. Oversaturated, something, whatever you want to call it. But I really like the moss and the crystals, and yeah, it's just a really nice, pretty looking level, even though the green is a little bit too green, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was one of the big things I said, was that it kind of overused the green palette a little bit, especially if you play Dustworth. Yeah, it's if you actually take a look at the backgrounds and as you're playing, it just has so much attention to detail. It's really great. Yeah, I think that in reference to the comments here, I think that's worth mentioning because of the overall category, and since we only wanted to add, maps once, that there are probably some maps in the overall that I consider better in terms of their art. But this map is one that's solely, I think, focused on the art, and it's best in that sense.
Yep, I would
So
generally
stay
agree with that.
tuned
That I think
for the
overall, and some of the dust mod maps that sort of get a little bit of an edge on the art capabilities that they can take advantage of and things like that. I do think there are potentially some that it's always going to be a subjective personal thing, of course, that you might think another map looks prettier. But yeah, I just think the detail, the level of just detail and work that went into the map and the background and things like that. Placing all those props is really really pretty incredible. Would you like to start off our next category with the honorable mentions?
Yeah, are we doing the honorable mentions
Yeah.
before the?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first honorable mention is Shinevitable by the very own Shin. This map was, I don't remember, like, he kind of came back at one point and started making maps. I think this is one of the first ones that he made, probably not the first one that he made, but it was really unique. I hadn't been very familiar with Shin maps before this year, so it was a good introduction, I think, into how Shin likes to make maps. It's a little busy with the color palette and everything that's going on, but I think that's part of the appeal to it, and inherently evil.
Yeah, I think Shin came back for the single screen map pack, and so he submitted his map for that, and then we were kind of just waiting for the map to release, and I believe he made this map after, like, it was his second map coming back, but it was the first one he released, and he released it before the actual single screen map pack, so it was kind of a cool preview of maybe what Shin maps are like, I guess, in preparation of that. So for our second honorable mention for our single screen category, we have another map by Shin Rikoa, Predestined Fate. And I really like this map, but as you can see, it's just kind of slightly larger than a single screen. So the camera has to scroll a tiny bit, so I couldn't, in good faith, put it in for the overall award. It's like if you had like a 16 by 24 monitor, you would see this whole map on a single screen. So just imagine in like 5 years when we get way better monitors that this is a single screen map. So that's why it gets an honorable mention.
I love the color of the lava. I don't know what to call that, but the purple's a really nice color.
Sure, it's like a purpley like essence.
Soda,
yeah, grape soda. That's a good word for it.
Okay, so this is single screen. I don't know if we said that, but I saw somebody that asked. So yeah, this is single screen. We have a top 15 for single screen, as opposed to the top 10 we just did for art. So these categories will fluctuate in numbers a little bit. And this is Subterranean Suburbs by Fish McMuffins. This is a map that I think it was in the CMR, right? In the I can't quite remember if it was
Or in the
CMR
single screen like pack.
So yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry, not the CMR, the single screen map pack. I really like the game plan. I thought it was a nice touch to add the trash can, and it kind of has a non-linear style in that you can go both ways. It actually, coincidentally, makes a really good co-op map as well, if you're into that.
Yeah, I agree. It was fun to play co-op, and I liked that it felt a lot like a city map where everything was kind of like weirdly slanted and kind of disjointed and sort of awkward, but it still kind of came all together into a pretty good map. All right, number 14, we have Green Screen by J-Dude. Yeah, this map was really cool. I thought the usage of dust blocks and the route on this was really, like, it makes sense when you see it, but it doesn't make sense. It's not the first impression route that I probably would have done playing the map. I really like that you can hit the end from outside the actual end room. And yeah, just the route of it going around in kind of a weird way is pretty neat.
I remember that ending heavy to be annoying to grind, but really satisfying when you get it. What's interesting to note is that a lot of times when we show the replays, they're probably not going to show the intended route on some of these as well. So that's kind of something to take note of.
That's a good point, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I think single screen maps especially are more susceptible to like having multiple routes, and generally like a route that maybe wasn't intended but kind of just happens to work out as being fast.
Yeah, absolutely. So next up is Integrated Circuit by Ravenkopf. He made, I think, 2 of these maps throughout the year. One was for a single screen, and I don't know if the other one was for something or just released separately. I really liked both of these maps. This was the second one in that series, and these maps are like the most puzzly maps I think I played besides maybe some Sleuth Solver maps. They take a lot of thought and kind of unique gameplay and manipulation of a lot of different mechanics in order to figure it out. I think the replay shows Dust Kid, which I think makes it really easy. But like if you do this with Dustman, Dustgirl, Dustworth, it's actually really fun.
I really like that he made it look like an actual, maybe not a full-on motherboard or a circuit board, but he has the little components and the wires connecting them, and he physically doesn't block the connections as well. He leaves them little gaps in between. I thought that was a nice kind of a little funny, cheeky, subtle touch or whatever into the background. All right. At number 12, we have Inkblot by Blue Eyed Rat. So I'm not sure if we mentioned, or I guess we have, that there was a single screen map pack that the whole community made and collaborated together on working on earlier in the year. So this is one of the maps from that. And yeah, it's got the Leaning Tower of Pisa, like, shifted, slanted map that makes playing it kind of weird to get used to it, but you get used to it. And I thought the usage of slime as ink when it's just, super black with the fog trigger was really neat, and it's a really cool effect. I like the lined paper effect. Yeah, this is just a really, really cool map.
Yeah, I thought it was cool and unique that he didn't just make it like a piece of paper straight up and down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's kind of slanted. That added a nice touch to it.
Yep, for sure. I agree.
Okay, next is Lovebox. This is number 11. This is by Lindley. This was also for the single screen map pack, as you'll probably hear us say a lot in this category. This is a really solid one that uses kind of the default like non-virtual tile set. I don't know if it is reminiscent of a specific stock map. I remember this being one of the harder ones as well, but I thought it was really pretty. The use of waterfalls was nice, the tiles were not really nice, and the gameplay was rather unique, but it was very challenging.
Yeah, he kind of put like a faded blue fog trigger over everything so that it even went on to the enemies. I think that really helped give it a visual theme with the waterfalls and the blue spikes. It just looks like a really relaxing, cool blue map. All right, number 10, we have Lemonade by Syzys. I still don't know how to pronounce his name. CZYYS?
Yeah, I just say CZYS. YYS.
Yeah, this map was really cool. There are surprisingly a lot of different routes you could take with this that are both really kind of different, but they're all almost the same speed. There was a fair bit of creativity that people did on this in exactly what way they left some prisms or cleared the dust.
Yeah, shout out to the any %.
Shout out to the 80% for sure.
Best grind 2017. Yeah, all the unique possibilities with this map were crazy. And they were the first introduction for me to like what C's kind of, I think, default map making style is. Because after this, he made a bunch of maps in a row that had this similar style and feel to them.
Yeah, he really likes the style of hitting prisms and then like using another attack to clear dust on a wall without getting an air charge refresh, and kind of alternating those back and forth. Really I don't know, just like complexly weaving those within your movement, and it's a really cool style that kind of almost inspired a category we made later, because I think it kind of inspired other people to maybe not copy it, but I think people kind of caught on that it was a really fun gameplay style to try and emulate, I guess.
Yeah, you can take the next one if you want.
Sure. All right. At number 9, we have Dust. Well, it's just DF, I guess, on Atlas, but it's Dust Force Plus Plus by Bebop 800. So this is based on N++. It's a pretty big single screen map, so some people might have issues with that, but I thought it was pretty neat. It actually kind of plays almost similarly to the game N++ with the way he does the falls and just the jumps and the slopes on the map and things like that. So it actually plays really similarly, which I didn't kind of expect. But yeah, really cool map. I kind of wish it would have had maybe less dust and maybe more like prisms, or something akin to the little pellets I think they are in N++. But yeah, really cool map. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yeah, I deferred to you on that one because I never played. I don't know. Did you play N++?
I've played a little bit of it. I didn't ever beat the entire game or anything. I never got super into it, but
yeah. So I didn't really have much to add there, I thought. And also, I really wanted to talk about the next map, number 8, which was in Cyan Mini by Avenged Ruler. So just a quick shout out, because he made 3 of these maps, which are single screen maps based off the Terror difficulties. So there's Ridiculous and O-Rage, but he changed the names of them slightly to make the mini. But yeah, we didn't want to just kind of bombard the list with a bunch of these maps. So this is kind of the one that I think we decided was the best, or this was my favorite at the very least. I thought it did a good job of kind of wrapping up a lot of the different elements in Insanity, but making it a challenge, but not quite as frustrating as I think real Insanity. I really love the minimalistic art style too, as well, and the ending screen.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say. I think my favorite of the group was Mini Rage, I believe that it was. Yeah, Avenged Ruler made several of them. I think there's maybe 4, I want to say. So yeah, go play them if you like that style. And that was definitely another kind of map style that people, I don't know, became popular this year for a little bit, was making mini maps of other maps, I guess, that we'll see pop up later. Alright, number 7, we have Bedtime Story by JM. I remember playing this in the map pack and being very confused, and I still am not sure if there even is an intended route, but it certainly led itself to some creativity in people's approach to it, and so just for that sake alone, I think it was a pretty fun map.
Yeah. This is one that, even though I was confused about, I was still having a lot of fun playing it. I could recognize that it was a really fun map, but it took a while for me to find a route for this map. And when I say took a while, I mean I just watched a replay.
Well, that's one way to do it.
Okay, so next is Snowy Ravine by Mirk. This is number 6, coming in number 6. This is one that we once again debated putting in multiple categories. I think we discussed art overall, maybe. I would agree that this art is absolutely fantastic. In the replay, I think there's some weird stuff going on here with some resetting, but I remember looking at the map and being absolutely blown away by the whole ravine aspect, the snow in the background. Like, it all worked so well. The whole atmosphere that it created was fantastic. So this is a really solid single screen, and it wasn't part of the single screen map pack, so it was kind of a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, I would think it's a little bit maybe too grayscale almost, but it has a cool almost 3D effect, and there's lots of little like translucent tiles and things in the background, and it kind of all gets lost in just this green, white, gray, brown kind of muddiness to it, I think. So unfortunately, it's maybe not as visually clear as it could be, but there's a lot of really small details in here that I really like. So yeah, definitely a fun map, and you can do some funny things with some canceling. All right, number 5, we have Cottontail by Indapop. This was also in the single screen map pack. I think overall this was maybe one of the more favorites of the map pack of the community overall. It wasn't like super hard. It was pretty short, but it was just really fun gameplay.
Yeah. I think a few of the maps bore a similar style to this in the single screen map pack because Indapop taught like at least 2 or 3 people how to make a single screen map pack for their first, or make a single screen map for their first maps for this map pack. Of those, I think it was probably my most favorite virtual map in that whole Nexus area of the single screen map pack. It just flowed really well. Like everything felt really natural. The 80% was a meme, but besides that, it was a great map.
Oh yeah, the 80% has a Terra jump, I believe, right?
Yeah, it's got a Terra jump.
Those are always fun.
Okay, next is circuit. Oh, okay, it's the next. It's Circuit Board. Sorry, by Ravenkopf, number 4. It's the next one in the series of the circuit maps by Ravenkopf. I like this. This is the first one, as I mentioned, and I really like this one. This one had some kind of gimmicks to it, you know, with the whole helicopter lights, and well, I guess you didn't have to do the helicopter light, but it was really fun to do that. It just had such a unique gameplay, and this one, as you mentioned with the other one, it has that same art style where you have the circuits in the background, and it's really cool. And since this is kind of the first one, I rated a little bit more highly since it was kind of the originator of that. But I think both maps were really great.
I think the routing on this one was more interesting and more fun to do. Once you understood what to do, at least, I think the routing on it was maybe less clear than the other one, which is hard to do when you're in such a confined space, I guess, to really make it clear which route is kind of the intended. So I remember a couple of people struggled with that playing the map the first time, but yeah, definitely a cool map. One of the harder ones in the map pack as well, so.
Yep. All right. Sorry, just got a message from somebody saying there was no music, but I think there is, right?
It's fairly low because I still need to be able to hear you. I can try and turn it up slightly though. Maybe that's a little better. All right, number 3, we have Thursday by C. So this was not in the single screen map pack. This is just a map released on its own. He released this as like a Days of the Week series, I guess. So there are a bunch of maps. Not all of them are single screen. But yeah, just C makes good maps, fun gameplay. I don't know, there's pretty much all there is to say about it.
Yeah, it was just, it's one of those maps that's like super well polished in every aspect. And it's like you can't really find anything wrong with it, you know. On top of that, it was really fun. And if this was released in the single screen map pack, I think it would have been a lot of people's favorites. Everything about it worked really well. Next up is Fecal Factory.
We didn't put this at number 2 intentionally.
Oh boy. Yeah. So probably, you know, one of the funniest maps that I think I played. There were actually quite a few maps that just really made me laugh this year. Fecal Factory was great because it's something that Shin had been working on for quite a while in his streams, if you ever caught that. And it was supposed to be his magnum opus. I think he said a different word instead of that, but yeah, it had a lot of cool. It had a really cool secret area to it. It was really inspired by the community, so it had a lot of like references and shoutouts in the secret areas and stuff, which you don't see in the replay, but that's okay. The use of like making everything poop, you know, looking is great with the some of the props and the waterfalls being like let's say chocolate waterfalls.
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah. So I think it was great. You know, I really enjoyed playing this map, and I really enjoyed looking at this map as well.
I didn't even realize until just now that we had put it at number 2. That was totally unintentional, but it made for a great surprise. All right, number 1, we have Yara Compressed by Isa Volpez. So yeah, mini maps became a thing of the stock maps. I debated this putting in the stock map, but I believe it was made for the single screen map pack, so I felt it kind of maybe belonged there more. Um, it's pretty crazy at how big a map Yada is that you can still fit almost all of the recognizable sections in a map this small. I think that's a testament to what Issa did with this map. So, thumbs up.
Yeah, this was. I think this was. We were pretty set in agreement that this was our favorite single screen. Some of the categories we were, a little bit of a debate between some of the top maps, but this one I think was a pretty clear favorite. My favorite of that map pack, as you mentioned, the creativity in getting everything in there. Taking a 2 to 3 minute long map and putting it in a single screen map is a significant challenge. And this also inspired those other difficult shrunken down maps that we referenced earlier with Insanity and O-Rage. But yeah, it was great.
Well, people also made like Mega Mini, Zeta Mini. There are a few others that people made along this style as well. I don't think they were all from the same person. I think it was kind of spread out between a couple different people. But yeah, if you want to play more of these, they're definitely out there and available. So. Would you like to introduce our next category?
Yes. Is it going to be, are we just going down the list on fast here?
Yep.
All right. So next category is fast maps. It's had like 4 different names for me. It was like boost maps, fast maps, quick maps. So I kind of went the more boosty route with some of my choice. I think Bird kind of went more like quick and fast maps. The first one is I don't know how to say that. Al-Cha. I don't know.
Al-Cha? Yeah, something like that. It's probably French.
Yeah, so it was supposed to be a kid-only kind of boost map. And if you played a lot of Indipop maps, you know that he favors really 2 kinds. One is like kind of an air control virtual map, and the other is like a fast, boosty speed map. And this is kind of the epitome of like an Indipop speed dash map, essentially. Keeping up the dash rhythm while you do a bunch of other things.
Alright, at number 9, we have Meme Forest 3 by Sheila Point. I debated this putting in art for a little while because of the background, and I really like the color palette. But yeah, this is definitely a fast map. It's pretty much boosting the whole way. Lots of slants, lots of slope boosts. Keeping them on dust blocks. It's just overall pretty much what you're looking for in a fast map. This category is pretty simple. Not much to say, I guess.
Yeah, it's really pretty. So next up is Mountain Dew Factory by Lindley. I really like. So I think actually this map was he considered a ramen map, but what Lindley considers a ramen map and what C considers a ramen map is different. So by ramen we're referencing these quickly made maps. So I think for a lot of people this would be a map that would take them hours to make, but it was really fun actually. I thought kind of all the boosts worked well. It was really quick. I like the theme with the Mountain Dew Factory. It's kind of humorous in that sense, but I really enjoyed it. The boost part of it and the dash part of it, going fast on this map was really fun.
Yep, pretty much. All right, number 7, we have Tempafrost by MN Tempest. He kind of made 2 of these Frost style maps. I remember one was a lot shorter than this. If this like was a winter proper Christmas themed like end of the year thing, this map probably would have fit a lot better, I guess. But yeah, just really nice work in the background of using a lot of just basic like shapes and tiles, and still making a map that it just looks like snowflakes everywhere, kind of, and icicles, and you go fast, and it's fun to go fast.
I want to add that I think Shin actually did the art on this one.
I could see
that. It's very
that.
similar. Yeah, it's very similar to his crystallized map, I believe, that he made back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was a collaboration effort from Tempest and Shin, and the art is great, but also not to be overshadowed. I think the gameplay works really well. There's the boosting works really good here. Next up is Greenhouse by Lindley. Greenhouse is an interesting map. at first I thought it was kind of like non-linear, in that you could go a couple of different ways. It's got that what's that ferrofluid feel to it with all the like roundabouts and everything like that. It actually I think is a good co-op map as well. Kind of another shout out to co-op maps. I really like the background. I think this was another quickly made map by Lindley, but it was really fun for me to grind. I think I spent, at least an hour or so just trying to grind the top time, which I obviously did not because I'm not as good.
If this is a ramen map, this is like one of the best looking ramen maps I've ever seen, just in terms of the background. I'm just going through looking at the different characters here, since there's almost an all-star top 4. We're very close. Somebody get on that? JM maybe? I don't know. Alright, number 5. We have Melanine by Indapop. Yeah, like we said, Indapop definitely has a favoring for these boost style maps. He's made several of them. A lot of them are really good. He definitely knows what he's doing when making these, and yeah, they usually end up pretty fun. He changes it up fairly frequently to keep them, new and interesting and unique. But if this is what you're looking for, you pretty much know what to expect with Indapop, so.
Oh yeah. This had pretty much every like Indapop like dash mechanic. Even the super at the end to do like, I don't know if that's called a hit rise or what actually the mechanic is at work there to grab onto the ceiling is a really nice touch. I didn't figure it out on my own, but once I had someone helping me and telling me what to do, it was really, really fun to do every time. Okay, so that was number 5. Number 4 is Wednesday by C. I think this is the second one in his weekly maps that he released that week, that we have on our list at least so far. I really liked Wednesday. If I remember right, I think this was my second favorite of the weekly maps that he released. The art style was really nice. It was very minimal. I think all of these weekly maps kind of went for a minimal aesthetic, but every part of it worked really well. And I know it sounds like I'm on a broken record or something here, but if these maps didn't work really well, they probably wouldn't have made the category. So it's kind of a fine art form to make dashing and boost maps work really well.
Yeah, one thing I was going to mention with this is it's almost entirely slants on the floor and the ceilings that you're boosting on. So it's like a fast map, but it's not like super, super fast. It's like you just keep kind of a quick pace, I guess, through the map. And yeah, it's pretty fun, well made. Looks great. I love the it's a minimalistic aesthetic, but it's good. It still looks very nice. All right, number 3. We have Scarofluid by Shinrikoa. Don't get spooked. So yeah, this is some sort of murder factory that you have to clean up all the blood, and you can clean up all the blood pretty fast. This feels like a Sonic map, lots of loops. I don't know, I don't have much to say.
Yeah, it was really nice. I think you considered putting it in the art category as well, didn't you?
Yeah, especially for the ending, the reveal of Die from behind the sign with all the oozing blood out of the bubbles is pretty good ending.
Yeah, it's very Shin, right? Yeah, it's an awesome map.
Oh, it's a reskin of an old map called Terror Fluid. Okay, that's why it seemed familiar. That seemed vaguely familiar, and it was part of the spookiness of the map. All right.
I don't think I've ever played the original, so that's news to me. Okay, cool. So is this number 2?
Yep.
So coming in at second place, almost at the top one here, is the interestingly named Idiot Map by Lindley. I'm sure you guys know Lindley likes interesting map names. This is one that I thought was really cool because it had the kind of stock map art style to it. I don't know if it referenced a specific stock map, but it had that kind of feel, at least in the visuals for me. I really like the juggling enemies aspect of it as you continue to keep up your boost. Sometimes that can get a little frustrating, but I thought it worked really well here. Just a really solid overall map, and I think we both had this on our list here.
Yeah, I really like that it changed it up with lots of enemies and kind of more awkward slopes and ceilings and things like that that you had to clean in your way. It wasn't just a straight boosting map. I like it when it's, you know, there's a little bit more depth to the gameplay going on. Alright, number 1, we have Harvest by Sea. This map, I believe he didn't make this for Halloween. He had a separate Halloween map, but this map really reminds me of Halloween or Thanksgiving. The color palette on this map is great. I really like the attacks in the little like crevices for the dust that he made along the way. Yeah, this is like one of my favorite maps, I think.
Yeah, it is a really great map. The backgrounds with the rays coming through are like a really, really nice touch. And it's, I mean, they've been used on a couple maps, and I think even a few maps this year. But I think he added some kind of specific physics to the way the little particles move in the background to fit the rays, or something like that. I remember throwing in the editor and taking a look at it, and it was really impressive, the amount of like attention to the finer details that he put in this map. Yeah, a really, really fun map, and I agree, it's probably number 1 here. Oh, next category.
Next category, oh boy.
Okay, so next category is stock inspired. These are maps that are inspired by stock maps, so essentially they're supposed to go above and beyond just having, like, you know, the forest tile set and fog trigger. It's also got to kind of be reminiscent in some sense of it as existing stock map. The first one we have is number 10. This is a top 10. It's Verdu by Lindley. This one, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not the greatest with stock maps, so maybe you probably are way better than I am at recognizing stock maps.
Well, yeah, so I think it's most similar to Fields, but it's kind of Ancient Garden mixed with Fields, sort of. So that was, I think, last year this category was a lot easier because it was very clear when people were inspired by a stock map making their map. This year, I think the waters became muddier, I guess. It became a little bit less clear to tell. You know, different people kind of made maps that used the tile sets maybe, but the gameplay was a little bit too different, and things like that. So in some cases it was a lot more subjective this year, and it was hard to decide. But I think if you like the maps Ancient Garden and Fields, you'll probably like this map. So that's maybe a better way to think about it. Alright, number 9. We had Rosy North by Glime. So, I'm not exactly sure which specific city map this is inspired from, but I can tell it's definitely very inspired by City. And I think it's kind of a combination of a lot of different city maps. I think maybe Forgotten Tunnel is probably one that's most similar, and maybe a bit of like Park here near towards the end. And yeah, it's just a pretty fun map. If you really like city maps, I think you'll enjoy this map quite a bit. It's a little bit maybe too spread out, and the first section feels a little bit too different from the second section, I think. But yeah, I really enjoyed this map, and I think if you like city maps, you'll probably enjoy it a lot too.
Excellent said. Alright, number 8 is Salty by Lindley. This is another one that I'm not quite sure on the map. It's a forest theme map, and at first I was like, oh, maybe it's Summit, but you know, it seems to have a lot of different elements inspired by the forest in it. And this is one that I actually considered putting in the boost category, but it was kind of broken up by sections of attacking and air control. So it wasn't like, I think it wasn't fully considered, I wouldn't fully consider it a boost map. It did actually play really well. I'm not usually a big fan of a lot of attacking of enemies and stuff, especially like big totems where you don't have a super or something like that. It's not my most favorite thing in the world, but it still was really well done in this case.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. I think it's probably most similar to kind of like a fusion of Summit and Ruins, maybe, something around those lines. But yeah, I think it flowed really well. It was a pretty fun map. Alright. Number 7 is Hideworth 2 by Leap. So there were 2 maps made this year that were Hideout for, I guess, the characters that Hideout was very clearly not made for, and one of those being Dustworth. It's quite different to Hideout in that it's a lot more, I think, about falling and the dust on the ceilings, whereas the normal Hideout is a lot more about climbing, I guess, and more horizontal movement. But this one is built for Dustworth, so it plays pretty well as Dustworth, and yeah, I think if you want to play Hideout as Dustworth and don't want it to be super awkward spacing your jumps the whole way, playing this map is probably going to be a bit more of a fun experience.
Yeah, excellent. I think some people would say that it's playing Hideout with Dustworth is the only way to play Hideout. But yeah, it was a really fun map. Yeah, it was great. Next up is Zeta Mini. Ooh, I'm super happy I get to talk about this one. This one is by C. This was from he kind of had like a mini series of maps. It wasn't like an official series. He just kind of released a few of them. I don't know which one came first and which one came last. I can't quite remember the ordering, but this was my favorite out of the bunch. We did not include any of the other minis. There was Valley Mini and Hilo Mini were the ones I remember. I think you gave a shout out to them already when we talked about the compressed map. But so we decided to just go with one. It was really creative to be able to make a map miniaturized. I'm sure there's a lot of awkward geometry, a lot of sacrifices it has to be made. It kind of blew my mind when I first saw this, that you were able to shrink down a map into like, quarter scale or something. It was really, really, really cool, and I had actually a lot of fun. It surprisingly worked really well still.
Yeah, I think the thing that surprised me and impressed me the most about this one is that the map still felt to scale, whereas other times it felt maybe the map had just kind of had sections cut short or kind of like pushed together sort of awkwardly. This one actually felt like the entire map was just shrunken down to like, yeah, 1/4 the scale or something, and it still played pretty well. So yeah, that was definitely really neat, really well done by C, and it was my favorite of the group as well. So
yeah. Another thing to note is like it's super impressive that the strategy, the route for that map was almost exactly the same.
all right, number 5, we have Dusk Temple by Sheila Point. So a map here inspired by Night Temple. Lots of more kind of unique gameplay styles on this than the traditional Night Temple, I think. But it was a really fun map and made really well. I really like the background, like sky, I don't know, color palette. And yeah, it was pretty short. I think probably easier than the actual Hideout, but fun map nonetheless.
Yeah, this was another one that I thought was really well done. Next up at number 4, so cracking under the top 5 here, was Kid Out by Sunny Day. If you guys know me very well, you know that I'm not a big fan of Dust Kid. So to say that this map was really awesome and actually really fun is saying a lot, I think, because I usually despise playing Dust Kid. So I actually thought this map was one of the funnest, if not the most fun, maps of that specific CMR. I don't remember which CMR it was in, but it was in one of the custom map races. It was really well done. Everything felt like on point. It was one of those that just flowed really well. There were some parts where you had to stop and think, just like in the first time you played Hideout. But I think once you got it down, it's one of those that's like really fun to go fast and even works better going at speed.
Yep, I pretty much agree with all of that. It was surprising to see how Hideout could work as Kid, because it's so awkward doing the normal one as Kid, and it's really not that different, I think, in this map. So yeah, it's funny that you only have to move things just slightly, and then it flows super well for Kid pretty much the whole way through. So yeah, that was pretty neat. Alright, number 3, we have Daylight Ascent by Nirith, who I believe is a new map maker this year. And he made a lot of these kind of stock-ish inspired maps. This one mainly of Ascent, of course, by the name. He used a lot of the like basic Ascent layout and level geometry, but still changed up the route pretty significantly while using a lot of the same geometry. So yeah, I thought it was pretty neat. It's a bit different in the gameplay style, I think, than the actual ascent. But still a fun level, really well made.
Yep. I've spent most of my time playing custom maps. I almost never play stock maps, but I still thought that this was a really, like, as soon as I played it, I think it was in the title, but as soon as I played it, like, it immediately felt like Ascent, but remixed, essentially, so did a good job of that. The next map up is also by Neareth, and that is Enchanted Grove, so coming in at the number 2 spot. And this one is inspired by Shaded Grove. I had the same kind of feeling, to be honest. It's like I almost could repeat my comments here, in that I don't play a lot of stock maps, but as soon as I played this one, it like had the feeling of Shaded Grove. It's really nice because it wasn't like trying to be super hard. It wasn't trying to be like a dark, version of that map. It was just trying to approach some of the obstacles differently. So it was a nice balance, I think, of a lot of different things here to make this work.
Yep, I think both of his maps were maybe more closer to like a remix of a stock map, less than a whole new map entirely that was just kind of inspired from a stock map, I guess. And I think there's merits to both, depending on how far on one scale or the other leaning which way, whether you want it to be more similar or more different, and unique and creative from the stock maps. But I think you'll enjoy them regardless. Alright, number 1, we have Night by Avenged Jeweler. Also a map inspired by Night Temple. This one I think especially was very different from Night Temple, but still really fun. And you can definitely see that a lot of the obstacles are very similar to Night Temple. But yeah, the route and the layout of the map is just fun the whole way.
Yeah, absolutely. Had the Night Temple feel to it. It works great. I think that this is an excellent choice at number 1. We did mention that Dark Force is not a part of the list, right?
Yeah, so we mentioned that in chat.
Okay, yeah.
We kind of debated back and forth on Dark Force a couple times. The end decision we ended up making was that we wanted to be able, especially when I make the list and post it on Reddit and things like that, is you want to be able to link the Atlas map, and you want the map to be ready, easily available for people to go and play. If they really, if they see it win an award or whatever, they want to be able to go and play it. And I felt like it was maybe a bit too, restrictive that for Dark Force you had to go play the other Dark Force maps in the Nexus and go get the keys and things like that. And with Dust Mod, you can give yourself the keys and things like that. So it's maybe not super restrictive, but yeah, those kind of will just get an honorable mention in, I guess, the stock map category here, as we probably would have put some of them in, but we leaned more towards them not being as readily available as we would have wanted. So we're leaving them out, I guess.
Yeah. I think that another reason was, too, that a lot of people worked on each one of the maps, so you'd have to be, like, crediting different people. I don't want to get anything wrong with saying who did what on each map.
Right, yeah, for sure.
But yeah, this level is great. Okay, on to the next category. This is, no bias, my personal favorite category. I love hard maps, even though I might not be the best at them sometimes. This is going to be harder, challenging maps. There are quite a number of really hard and challenging maps on this list. I think that one thing I tried to do, and I think that Bird tried to do based off his list as well, is that we tried to avoid just like really gimmicky hard maps for the just being absolutely ridiculously hard, with no sense of gameplay or whatever. So the maps that we tend to put on here were fair but very challenging and difficult. The first one is going to be Loop Core, coming at number 15, so it's the top 15 by C. I know this might cause some outrage in the chat because a lot of people think Loop Core was the hardest map, and I just want to point out that this is not a top 15 list of the hardest maps. It's the top 15 list of the best hard type of maps, if that makes sense. But yeah, Loop Core is one that relies on a little bit of gimmicky mechanics, if you count Dwarfs and Terras as gimmicks. I think a lot of people would in that sense, but yeah.
I think the better question is, who among us does not count Dwarfs and Terras as gimmicks?
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, this is one map that it's got such a long life, in that people still talk about this map. It's still referenced. So I think that's kind of a testament to how awesome of a map it was, but at the same time being really crazy.
Oh, I'm being requested to show the tool assisted run of this, so let's do that real quick.
Yeah, I approve.
So yeah, I will also say that this category is kind of by request because I didn't make a hard map category last year, and I'm definitely more of the opinion that these aren't my kind of personal favorite maps. I've kind of grown to appreciate them a bit more this year, I think, after looking through them and paying more attention to them, I guess, with the intent that I knew I was gonna have to make a category in order to make people happy. So, yeah, by request, there you go, Loop Core.
Yeah, that's the first time I've seen the task. That's ridiculous.
Alright, number 14. We have Blue Moon Temple by Lindley. Oh, a lot of these maps are also long, which kind of compounds the hard factor, I guess, to them, where maybe not each individual obstacle is maybe not that difficult, but the combination of doing them all together, for a minute straight or longer sometimes is quite the challenge in order to get the SS. But yeah, Lindley, as someone mentioned in chat, Lindley and C both tend to be able to make these hard kind of maps that still have really interesting gameplay that don't rely on gimmicks too much. I think that's maybe sort of a bit of a subjective opinion kind of thing, but at the same time, you are kind of wanting people to play your maps, so you do kind of have to appeal to them a little bit. And yeah, just a fun map. Lots of variation in the gameplay throughout.
Yeah, this one I think flew under the radar for me and maybe some other people because it I don't know, it just the way it was released, like it's not really talked about as one of the more difficult maps, but it was actually very difficult, partly because, as you mentioned, it was really long. But I think length and difficulty are inherently linked to each other. So, yeah, this was a really fun map once you get the SS. But I don't think I even got the SS to be honest on this. So.
Yeah, there's only 3 at the moment with the SS: Skyhawk, Angerval, and I'm not sure who Ran Lives is. Maybe somebody knows. All right.
It's I think that's Sleuth, because it's like
okay.
a Dust Kid. So that would be my guess.
Very possible.
Yeah, all right. Next up is Terrible by C, and I know, like I said, we didn't try to rely on too many gimmicks, but it's just ironic that towards the bottom of the list here we have some more gimmicky reliant maps. So as you can imagine, Terrible relies on teardrops. It was, but the nice thing about this was it was more than just teardrops, right? Like C actually made a map, and that's what I love about C's maps is that when he does something, he doesn't just like make a map in 15 minutes exploring some gimmick or something that he wants to do. He builds like a whole map around it. There's often secrets that are like longer than the actual level themselves. This map I think was fair in the sense that if you can call a teardrop fair, but nothing was really insane. It just took a lot of trials to get them down, I think. So
yeah, I think he gave you enough air charges that you had kind of enough chances at the teardrops, for the most part. I really like the background art on this as well, where there's just lots of like cobwebs and little details and like lit up mushrooms and things like that. There's lots of background detail in this map, which is pretty unusual, especially for a hard map, because very few people are ever going to play it. Most people are going to play it for 20 seconds, realize how hard it is, and then just kind of exit out and go play a different map instead. So yeah, it's nice that he put a lot of effort into a map that very few people, I think, would appreciate. So all right, number 12, we have Za Warudo by Angerval. So this is maybe similar to a gimmick map where uses this tech of super canceling, mostly done on walls, to like permanently hit stun enemies so that they freeze and don't move. You can do it with tires there, which of course never stand still or cooperate ever. And I believe he does it with these scroll enemies later, so that they don't fly at him, so that he can actually climb up and reach the end. This map actually has a really cool aesthetic as well, I think, with the background color and like the flowers on the checkpoints, I believe. And yeah, overall cool map, even though it's kind of gimmicky.
Yeah, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that, if I didn't try to pronounce it correctly and butcher it. Is it Za Warudo? Is that how you say it?
I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, that map was really cool. I really like the gimmick with the super canceling. Next up is Confetti by iBums. This one was a part of his CMR to some, we'll say, debate because it was a character-specific map. It was a Duskit-only map, and this is coming at number 11, by the way. This map was, I think, just really, even though it was Duskit specific, and not every plays Duskit, I think it was still really challenging. It was certainly kind of a surprise from iBums, whose brownie maps are kind of what he's known for. But I really liked the map. I thought it did a good job of actually being pretty fair. There was maybe one obstacle that was a little bit frustrating, but besides that, it was actually really fun once you got the specific gameplay and route down on how to do everything.
Yep, I pretty much agree with most of that. I think it was one of the more playable hard maps as well. There's quite a bit of a number of SSs here instead of like the 2 and 3. And
Right.
yeah, as Timmy mentioned, there is one map in this list which still does not have an SS. So if that's a call to arms, or so to speak, of the people who really like this category, there you go. The race is on. All right, number 10, we have Lost in the Mainframe by Mr. Firestorm. And this map, I think, maybe isn't the hardest of the group, but is probably one of the more fun to play. It's kind of like I was saying, where the individual obstacles in this aren't very difficult, but it's a long map. And I really like the visual aesthetic to this map. It's pretty unique. I don't know what I would even call it. I really like the suns, the little hanging like chandeliers almost. They're kind of like this. It almost looks out of like Tron, but Tron is more blue, and this is really red and yellow and orange. And yeah, really cool looking map. Pretty fun to play. Surprisingly harder than it looks, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the boosting sections aren't too bad, but then you throw into air control sections, and it gets a little bit tough. It really fits the title, though, as you were saying, with the Tron, and it's called Lost in the Mainframe. I think it really fits that aesthetic. I think C helped with the art on this one, so I want to throw that out there. Okay, next up we have... Sorry, I'm not finishing before the replay's over, am I?
No, it's all good. It's a long replay, so...
Okay. So next up we have Daylight by JM. This is actually a really fun, difficult map. I think that we initially had this in the overall category, maybe. But then I kind of said, wait, this map is actually really hard and probably should be in the challenging maps. The visual style of it was actually really interesting, and I think maybe one of the only things that I could say that was maybe one of the reasons that many people didn't try it, not only because it was hard, but it was hard to see some of the dust at sometimes. That being said, once you kind of knew where the dust was and everything like that, playing through it was really fun. It was one of my let's say top difficult maps that I actually assessed throughout the year. Probably one of the hardest maps, I guess I could say, that I assessed. So it was a really awesome map, and I really, really, really like the visual style.
Yeah, I think the visual style reminds me of like Starburst candies. I don't know, maybe I'm alone in that, but that's the closest thing I get. Is it looks like everything's kind of like, I don't know, this fruit juice almost. And yeah, I originally had it in overall. I really like the map, but with it being so hard, it's kind of hard to expect many people to really get much out of the map, so it kind of belongs in, specifically for the people who really want to play the hard maps and grind them out. So yeah, that's why it ended up being focused on here instead of the overall categories, just so people could maybe use the overall to get some maps that they can actually probably play and complete. So
yeah, the Indian climb was actually really fun. Surprisingly, it doesn't look very fun, but it was.
All right, number 8, we have Unit Vector by C. So C made a couple of these maps, Unit Vector, Null Vector. I think there might have been another one, and they all kind of have a similar style here. One was like green, and this one's purple. They're really difficult. They look great for one thing, and I really like the little like jagged, like serrated edges of spikes he used that you kind of barely hover above. The entire time it looks like you're very on the brink of death, just very closely avoiding it. And my one maybe complaint is that the spike jump like panels almost that he built into the map are, because they're a different color, they're a little bit hard to see in some places, I think. But aside from that, these are just really well made maps. So
yeah, they are awesome. I think, like I said, this would be higher, but I did have a few complaints as well. It was hard to see a few things, and then also the routing through it was actually really challenging to figure out. In fact, he had to resort to arrows, I think, at some parts because it was a little puzzling to know like what specific way you should go through the obstacles. But yeah, it's really nice. Actually, speaking of Tron, does it kind of? I mean, does it remind you of Tron, or is it not?
I could see that too, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got that feel to it. But yeah, give these maps a play if you want a really challenging map. I thought these might be some of the more challenging maps on here on this list, besides maybe something like Loop Core. So they're pretty fun that once you know exactly where to go and the route that you're supposed to do through the level. Next up is Advanced Precision by C. This was It was either this. There was 2 precision maps. One of them was in a CMR, and one I think was just separate. I can't remember if this was the CMR one or not.
This was the CMR one, yeah.
This was the CMR. Okay, yeah, this was that same CMR that had the Dust Kid specific map. So we had a Dustworth only map right after that, which was great. But yeah, it was as the namesake the name says, it is advanced. You need to have advanced precision. Even as a Dustworth main, I really had trouble with this map. I think this probably took the longest. Maybe the Dust Kid map was slightly longer, but it was really tough.
I remember when we said CMR should be limited to silver keys and below. So that this was in a CMR is making me very hesitant to ever play a CMR again. But yeah, good map. C kind of like latched onto this style, I think, where he used just one tile of space or whatever, and he normally cuts it off as well, so it's not even like a full block. It's normally kind of just a very small sliver of a tile that you have to work with in between the advanced air control stuff. So yeah, I think Advanced Precision is a pretty good name for his map there. All right, number 6, we have the other precision map, Extreme Precision by C. So I believe this is the one that released separately and has a similar style to the other map. And yeah, that's about it. Similar style, they're both pretty fun, pretty similar. I think this one was a bit more maybe challenging to figure out the first time. Had more use of like dust blocks and kind of looping back around on itself, so the route was maybe a bit harder to figure out. So
yeah, definitely more puzzling, I think, on a first playthrough on this one. But it's very similar. Pretty much everything that we said about the other one I think applies here. Okay, next up we have Abyssals by Lindley. Oh man, this category, I love this category. Abyssals is another really fun map. I don't know if I'd say this one flew under the radar, but this is another really challenging map that I don't think a lot of people actually got around to assessing. It had this kind of unique art style to it that Lindley used in a few other maps. I can't remember the names of all of them. But I remember playing this one on stream quite a bit, and I still don't think I have the SS. So it has that gameplay that you mentioned that Lindley kind of adheres to a lot with slants, and there's no really way to like describe Lindley's type of gameplay other than saying it's like Lindley gameplay,
yeah, pretty much. So, I would agree with that.
Right. But it was another one of those that's like really, really fun once you get the route down. I don't think much of the route was confusing. There are a few parts where it's like it's more nonlinear in the way that you can approach obstacles. But I thought this map was really fun, and this is on my to-do list to SS.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. I think the pyramid I know has a sort of similar visual style, although that visual style changes over the course of that map a lot, so maybe not. But yeah, his visual style here, I think he does kind of use, I think especially dust blocks he uses a lot in pretty creative ways. That's pretty unique to Lindley, and like you said, lots of like slants and just lots of prisms and things like that. So, yep. All right, number 4, we have Null Vector by C. So this is the green map to complement the purple map. This, I think, is probably the harder of the two. It just has a lot more tight spaces, I think, and is even more, I don't know, maybe restrictive and kind of claustrophobic to play through. But still pretty fun. You know, if you liked the other map, you probably like this map.
Yeah, I thought this one was actually a lot harder than the other one, but that might have been me because I played Dustworth. I'm not really sure. There felt like there was a lot more like things you had to mapler. There's one part I'm not sure, you know, with the delay, but you have to like keep a super to get back up, and everything. So it was one of those. It's like you might really struggle on a first playthrough or as you kind of route through the level, but once you get it down, it's really satisfying to do some of the obstacles. I think that no matter what, you know, this map is one that's like you could play it a million times and it would still be really challenging. It's also really long, so I don't know if we'll get through the entire replay, but you know, it's like the same length as basically Yada. It's like 2 minutes or something, and that's if you're moving fast. So certainly a lot of spike jumps, but I think that this one for me was a little bit more challenging, a little bit maybe more fun once you can get it down. Maybe a better hard map, we'll say, than the other vector map.
And yeah, I'm at least watching through the top replay fully once on each of them.
Okay, that's
so we're still going.
Let's go Cyber Complex.
Oh yeah, we're only gonna watch that one once. I think we'll get plenty Cyber Complex with just the once. Almost done here. There we go.
Okay, next up is Pretentious by Isa Volpes. Isa has made a lot of maps in the past and been very involved. I'm not sure. This year, Isa, I think, made a few maps, and we actually mentioned Isa won the category for best single screen map, I think, with Yada Compressed. This is one that felt like it was a single screen map at first, but has this very claustrophobic, compressed feel to it. But then all of a sudden, it's like, it's not a single screen map. It was actually really challenging, mostly because of the claustrophobic spaces, but there are some really tight tricks that you need to do. I really enjoyed it, and I thought it had a good mix of introducing a lot of gimmicks. I wouldn't say gimmicks, but a lot of different gameplay aspects that were challenging, but really satisfying and fun to pull off.
Oh my goodness, Fresh! This any percent is a work of art. I believe that was two dwarfs I saw into a Terror drop. Well done, Fresh. You deserve an award just for that 80%. Yeah, I agree. Felt like a single screen map. It's kind of a cool style of map where, you know, the top and bottom are kind of like locked in place, and then it just scrolls sideways. It's kind of like a panning map or whatever. That used to be a more popular, I guess, style that people made maps in. There were a few that were almost entirely horizontal like that on, you know, just a flat strip, and fell out of fashion for some reason. So yeah, this is pretty fun to see. Has lots of little art details and, you know, flowers and leaves and foliage and things alongside it. So yeah, I thought well made. All right.
Shout out to Fresh for another meme 80%.
Yep. Number 2, we have Invasion by Sleuth Solver. And this is the map lacking an SS currently, so if you want the hot world first SS, it is up for grabs as of this moment. And yeah, I can definitely see why this map has not been SS yet. Sleuth is kind of known for making hard maps, but this one especially seems particularly challenging. Has a bit of puzzle elements. There's a few really kind of like specific sections that you need a certain amount of speed and momentum for, that you really have to know, you know, what position you need ahead of time. Lots of kind of dust that's a little bit hard to see in some nooks and crannies that maybe could be a bit more visible. But yeah, this map is definitely a marathon and a challenge.
Yeah, it was. I believe this map is kind of like a compilation of a lot of Sleuth's their maps kind of mashed together, or like elements that he's used in other hard maps that he's made before. I remember this map, like, I still debate this with Angerville especially, but I think that this is one of, if not the hardest map of the year. Yeah, you could say like Loop Core and some other maps are harder, but I think this is one of the the few that doesn't rely on any terras or dwarfs that is really difficult. There's the whole like air dash section that's like from Mirror Shard or Mirror Flake. I know I always forget the name of that map, but it's really cool because it's like you're playing a lot of Sleuth's maps. It's really, really tricky. Yeah, it doesn't have an SS. Another thing that's I think interesting to note is that when you're watching the replay, it's like, oh, that's how you do it. But like if you try to just go into this blind and try to play it, like I couldn't even get past the first checkpoint without asking for help. Like it's really puzzling and really tricky to figure out some of the tech on this. Okay, number 1 is Pyramid Tomb by Lindley. I'm super happy this made number 1 because this was this is another map. And a lot of these maps, I know I keep saying this, but could have been in the overall list. I really, really liked Pyramid Tomb. The visual style I thought was excellent. The use of shadowing, it's not the first and not the last map that we'll see that uses that kind of like shading technique. But whenever I see it, it's like I don't think it's been overdone at all. At this point, it's such a fresh and cool take on it. The gameplay is the Lindley type gameplay that I think we mentioned before, where it's a lot of slants. It's a lot of really interesting ways to route through obstacles. It's one that's been on my to-do list to SS forever because I really enjoy playing it. So even though I think I've gotten very frustrated at it. I still keep coming back to it. I think it's really impressive that JM has a Dusk Girl top time on this because I thought Dusk Girl would be one of the hardest characters to beat this map with.
Really? That's kind of surprising. I don't know what character I would think would be maybe easiest or hardest. I feel like it's hard to tell with Lindley kind of style gameplay, especially. Just the way that you would handle an obstacle is pretty hard to figure out, I think, just at a glance. I really like the color changes on this map. I think some of them maybe look a bit better than others, and some of the first ones are my favorite. And I really like the ending as well. There's a nice kind of finality to it.
Yeah, this map is, I think, the epitome of everything when it comes to a difficult map that I like, because it was really fair, it was really challenging, it was lengthy, it was beautiful. I mean, I just love this map.
Alright, our next category is going to be the experimental concept maps. We kind of ended up lumping dust mod maps into this, because if you were going to make an experimental concept map after dust mod tools kind of got released, it's kind of like, why wouldn't you use those? So, I don't know. A lot of them maybe didn't use dust mod super heavily, but some of them certainly did. And I think we initially had a lot longer list than this. It's only a top 5 now, and we narrowed it down. We had very different ideas of what maps were the experimental concept maps, so I think this is going to be a very kind of personal category of which ones you kind of, I don't know, especially connected with. But we agreed on a top 5 here, so number 5. We have Pokermans by Lindley, and if you haven't seen this before, this might blow your mind. So he made Pokeballs in Dust Horse with the Dust Mod tools and scripting. I'm not sure, it's not a plugin, right? It's just it's built into the editor now that you can make these kind of things. I think it was released as a plugin as well, but that was after the fact. It was originally a script. Gotcha. Yeah, I think you can play this map, but hundreds of times, and you could still find it to be really fun. Throwing the Pokeballs and playing through the level quickly is actually something that I've never it was a totally new experience because you're balancing things that you in different mechanics that you haven't ever really utilized. I think in Dust Horse to that nature. So yeah, I would definitely give this a try if you guys are wanting to try out the Pokeball script or plugin or whatever you want to call it. But yeah. Yeah, those are all Master Balls. He's kind of cheating. He didn't get the 3 shakes and then they pop out. That's what always happens to me, at least. Yeah. All right, next up is Spooky Blues by Lindley at number 4. And you did mention this, but man, there were so many maps that we could fit into this. So I would really implore you guys to look at the post on Reddit sometime later,
because there's a lot of maps on here that I think that could have made it. This was cool because it was another, I believe, script that at this point I'm having a hard time keeping track of who wrote what. I know C does a lot of it. MSG has done a lot of work for this. Lindley has done some stuff. Skyhawk. So, but this one was cool because you could basically draw like tiles in the blue areas. It's like the opposite of the Minecraft mod in some sense, but it was kind of restrictive too. So it added a unique element of gameplay.
Yeah, I think this was definitely more fun than the Minecraft mod. You know, it's kind of like a build your own route or build your own map as you go kind of thing, where, yeah, there's just so much creativity you could do with this. You could probably make a whole ton of cool secrets and routes, and I don't know, there's just lots of freedom that I think it's definitely underutilized, and I would want to see a lot more maps that used that kind of thing in the future. All right, number 3, we have Parallax Abuse by Waho. Sure, let's go with that. So, I initially had this in art. It's kind of maybe not deserving of being an art because I believe it was mostly made with a script in terms of the background and the art and things like that. But man, this map is cool just for the design of it and just for the concept of making it, that it kind of deserved a mention. It just looks so cool to play. Yeah, I never get bored looking at this map.
Yeah. Yeah, probably use like what, Dustmaker to make this or something.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. And the account is like a one-hit wonder, if we can say that. No other maps were released. So I think that the Waho was kind of indicative of like the feeling you have when you play this level. But it's really cool. It's really fun, and it certainly makes you add a few times, like, you know, really kind of take in what's going on.
I think the ending is definitely the biggest payoff, so.
All right, next up we have Free Prism by Lindley. This was a map that I don't know if I've ever seen this before. Take that with a grain of salt because, you know, I haven't played. I've been playing custom maps maybe the last like 2 years, we'll say. So if this has been done before that, I don't know if I've seen it. But the map is centered around the fact that you can release the prisms behind a dust block wall, and then they'll continue along their pre-designated route. And you have to time it so that they cross the point that you need. So you have to go through the rest of the level quickly, and then you have to like use it when you get there. The ending is a little bit crazy with the freeing the prisms, but I think it is a really unique mechanic that could actually be used in some other maps in the future if people feel so inclined.
Yeah, I've played a lot of custom maps, and I had not really seen it before, or at least not done nearly as well, where it, you know, it just felt integrated into the map. It wasn't like a gimmick thing. I don't really think you ever... There was a little bit where it felt like you were kind of waiting on the prisms, but it wasn't like too bad. It wasn't too significant. So it's kind of forgivable. You know, that'd be a very hard thing to balance for all the different spectrum of skills of players that could be playing the map. So that's a hard thing to get right. But yeah, definitely well made, pretty fun map. All right, number 1, we have Lava by Matter Monkey. So, you know the platformer staple of having lava rising from the bottom, that you gotta not touch the bottom in order to not die, and you gotta beat the level first before the lava gets you? Well, here we go. It's in Dust Force now. And the actual level itself is pretty fun, I think. It's a well-made level. And, you know, the level is just made so much cooler by having the rising lava. It looks really kind of weird and out of place, I think, in the Dust Force art style. I'm not exactly sure how that lava graphic is made, but yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, it really blew my mind when the first time I saw it. And it's kind of interesting because Dust Force doesn't really have that kind of as a mechanic, and a lot of other platformers do have that one level, you know, Ori or whatever the game might be. But yeah, it's really cool. It's the only level that used it, I think. I don't think any other level, you know, built upon this idea. So it could be explored a little bit more. It could be overused in that sense. You know, not everybody's cup of tea here, but it's really cool. The scripting that went into this, I'm not a big coder, so I don't really know about it, but it kind of blows my mind. Okay, that brings us to our next category, which is tech gameplay. Now, this is a category that mostly Bird worked on, so I might defer to him a couple times when talking about some of these maps. I know most of these maps, but what was your kind of what was your parameters for putting maps in this category?
So yeah, so my parameters, I guess that's a good way to describe it, was you mentioned Lindley gameplay earlier, and I think Lindley kind of inspired, CZYS also has a pretty recognizable gameplay style, and the two of them are sort of similar to each other, and I think they, could go together with each other in a lot of ways. If I maybe had, if they make a collab map or something, that'd be pretty cool, I think. But yeah, they definitely rely a lot more on more of the advanced tech and lots of quick button presses and lots of canceling your attacks and attacking dust and prisms and managing all those things and doing lots of things simultaneously and in sequence in each other and interleaving them while you're making your way through a normal level. So they're definitely a very frantic kind of gameplay style, and they're pretty unique. But when you see the top replays on them, I think the top replays on these are some of the most impressive. Like I said, they just look kind of this frantic, but yet still very precise and methodical. Like, I'm gonna get this exact piece of dust right now, and I'm gonna do that type of thing. So they're definitely very cool maps, I think, to watch the top replays on, and just based on that alone, they get plenty of enjoyment from them. And I think they're pretty fun to play. Maybe a bit challenging, but fun to figure out at the same time. So that first map, this is an honorable mention, Yeah, by Lindley. We have a second honorable mention here, Easy One by Lindley.
Oh, yeah, that would be me. So yeah, I think a lot of these maps will have a very similar feel to them, whenever they're made by Lindley, at least. But yeah, I think Bird summed it up nicely. You're going to see lots of attacking and moving back and forth. It's something that you see in a few specific map makers that they kind of employ quite a bit. They're really satisfying once you get them done because they require like a high APM, basically, in order to complete them. So when you get them down, it's good stuff.
And finally, our third honorable mention is Interior Crocodile by Lindley. So these just got kind of honorable mentions because they're kind of basic. Like you said earlier, a Lindley ramen map is maybe not the normal style of ramen map you would expect. So while these have really good gameplay, there's not much else to them, and they are kind of simplistic and basic. But if you're coming for the gameplay, you're still going to get a full meal, so to speak. So yeah, they're definitely fun to play, and worth the first playthrough at least.
All right, next up is our first map of the actual top 10. So those are all honorable mentions, as you mentioned. This is Green Map by C. This map is a short map, but it is very tech gameplay focused, in that you have to do a lot of quick movements. It has an interesting strategy on the final enemy, which I believe is a bear, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it is a bear. And it's really fun. It's one of those. It's super quick to grind, super fun to play when you do. Good use of anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes of your time, or maybe less if you're better.
Looks like only one person has an 80% on this, which is surprising, I guess. Well done by Fishy. All right, number 9. Sequentially after Green Map, we have Yellow Map by Lindley. Maybe something recognizable from Lindley's maps that you've seen is starting on a Jorf of the dust block so that you can reuse it later, which I think was a pretty neat mechanic. And yeah, these tend to be shorter maps, generally I would say below 20 seconds for sure, and generally even shorter than that, where they just kind of, they're like a test. They're like a skills test or something. It's like you're getting your Dust Force driver's license or something, where you're just being tested on knowing the mechanics, knowing the gameplay and the techniques, advanced tech that you can do, and things like that, and just putting you to the test. And if you can beat the test, then you get a fun map out of it. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Quick note: Yellow Map and Green Map are by Lindley and C, and not by the same map maker. Confined by C is next at number 8. This was a map that was that tech gameplay style, but I think actually had a really interesting art It was a little bit busy and a little bit like claustrophobic almost in some parts, but it's like it had the gameplay that's very reminiscent of like Pyramid Tomb or Signals, which is a map we haven't mentioned yet, but it's like a shortened down version of that. It's absolutely beautiful, and I really think I could have put in the art if it didn't have so many maybe spikes mixed together, like the forest and the metal spikes wasn't my favorite thing, but other than that, it's a really solid map, and I really enjoyed it.
Yep, I agree. It was a bit visually busy, I think, for me as well, but the gameplay was pretty well done, so it's hard to really fault it. All right, number 7, we have Ruins Climb by Lindley. In case it wasn't obvious at this point, the very few map makers who enjoy making these maps pretty much dominate this category for the most part, all on their own. And yep, definitely kind of what you'd expect from Lindley. Pretty creative use of dust blocks. You know, a bit of air control, some slanted ceilings, things like that. He really enjoys kind of just putting dust in weird places and kind of making you figure it out. And somehow it all flows really well in the end, no matter which way he makes it.
Okay, next up is Interlude by CZ. YYS, who I just sometimes call CZ. CZ, I think you said right, like C, Lindley, and CZ, they all have this kind of gameplay that they focus on. Interlude was an interesting one, primarily because I think this was, you know, I'm actually remembering the order, but I think this might have been before Vaporwave, which was the really big one by him, but it really kind of expanded upon that gameplay style that he likes. So you certainly will see that in a lot of his other maps, and also reminiscent in Lemonade, which we have already talked about.
One person who we're not going to mention, who I also think has a fair number of maps that have a similar gameplay style to this, is Indapop. And you can definitely tell he likes it. He grinded this map enough to get world record on it, so yeah, he definitely enjoys these kind of style of maps as well, and he's made a few of them in the past. So yeah, if you want to find more of them, you can probably search through his maps as well. All right, next up we have Friday by C, another one in his day of the week grouping here. You know, again, just lots of attacks, lots of dust placed in kind of, you know, weird to reach places, lots of just light attack, jump, light attack, jump, light attack, jump, you know, climbing up, making your way to the top. It looks really nice. It's a really, I think, again, kind of, C kind of likes that minimalistic aesthetic style to his maps, but they all still look really good. You know, he generally sticks to just a few colors for his color palette, and yeah, his maps look nice and they play well, so it's hard to go wrong with a C map.
Yeah, I think that's like my exact vote. It's hard to find a C map that disappoints. Next up is Jalopy, number 4 by Lindley. This one has a few things going for it. First is it has this kind of like pattern in the virtual like tiles. I don't really know what to call it, but it's, if you guys have played Lindley maps before, you definitely have seen it, and I probably could say at least 10 maps I've seen this in. I like it every time I see it because it adds a lot of depth to it, and you know, rather than just having kind of a static like color for the dust blocks or something. The gameplay in this one was really fun. I remember playing through this one. I really enjoyed it. This was one of my more favorite of these tech gameplay maps, so I would definitely agree with this placement on this list.
Yeah, I agree. I want to say the actual original tutorial had a sort of similar, like breaking up of the virtual tiles like that, and yeah, I agree. It keeps it kind of just visually interesting. You know, gives your eyes something to look at instead of just being this whole huge wash of one color across the screen. All right. At number 3, we have Slip by C. This one I could see having some trouble with Twitch encoding, possibly, due to the background. Definitely focused on wall cancels here in this one, in dealing with these bears. Dustkid probably helps with her extra air charge and her fast heavies. I think it's a nice touch that he placed all the bears within reach of Dustkid's heavies. That's a frequent challenge that some map makers are less willing to do, I guess.
Yeah, I'm glad he released this one. I think he said he was considering not releasing it too as well, so I'm glad that he went through with it. Number 2, getting into the top 2 here, is Vaporwave by CZYYS. Real quick, honorable mention here to this thumbnail, because I think this thumbnail probably wins Best Thumbnail of the Year, if that was a category. It's got a really, really cool thumbnail. But yeah, it's kind of like a Hotline Miami type inspired map. It's got that whole 80s vibe to it. That's kind of, this thing that's becoming popular. Maybe it's already past popular. I don't know anymore. But yeah, it's really cool. There are a lot of elements in the backgrounds if you pay attention. It has really good attention to detail in it, like signs and stuff that are really well done. The color palette is great. I think in almost any other situation, I wouldn't like yellow and pink together, but because it's got that 80s like vibe to it, it really works. The gameplay is fantastic, by the way, once you can figure out the route.
Yeah, I definitely agree on thumbnail of the year, and yeah, that whole kind of retro futurism, like cyberpunk outrun aesthetic that I agree kind of became popular recently, if it's not still popular. And yeah, I agree. It's one of the very few maps that can make this kind of purplish, pinkish, yellow combination work together really well. All right, and number 1, the upset, the underdog, the surprise that no one expected. We have Lolo by Alternative Lily, or Alternative Lili. So it's none of the map makers we've been talking about this whole time. So yeah, I'm actually not even sure where this map came from Alternative Lily. I don't think he's made any map that was super similar to this ever since. But yeah, this one is surprisingly out of style, but very well made and super fun map.
Yep. It's kind of hard to tell from the replay, but like if you actually play this map, it plays really, really well. All right, so that's it for the tech gameplay category. Coming into, this is the final category besides the overall list. So this is the final non-overall category here. We're getting almost in the home stretch. That is air control. Air control is, one of my more favorite mechanics in the game, so I'm a little bit biased here once again to some of these. But at first we have an honorable mention here with Black and White by C. I believe, once again, this was in a CMR. And it had some really interesting visuals to it, and also it worked really well. By the way, we're kind of defining air control as a set of movements without actually touching the ground, basically managing your movement and momentum in the air, with lots of resets usually.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with all of that. Yeah, lots of these air control maps, like he said, you don't really touch the ground very often. It's lots of air charge refreshes, and yeah, just lots of managing, your height, managing your falls, managing your distance that you can get out of your jumps and things like that. So, if you like that style of map, there's definitely plenty out there that you would enjoy. Number 10, we have Prism Time by Lindley. Similar to the other map, you don't really touch the ground this whole map through. There's definitely an abundance of air charges that you have access to, and you've got to manage your height. These are some not super narrow tunnels, but narrow enough, especially if you're playing Dustorth, that these can be hard to fit through. I like that a lot of the prisms are kind of close together, that you could reasonably hit multiple of them at the same time if you knew exactly how many air charges you would need. That you could, optimize things that way by hitting multiple of them at the same time when you wouldn't need them later, things like that. So definitely a cool map by Lindley. And yeah, sorry, before you go ahead, there's the overall categories next. There is only 40 maps in that, same as last year. So for those wondering.
Yeah. Number 9 is French Vanilla by Twinkie. Twinkie has made, I think he made a few maps that were dedicated to co-op. I'm not sure if this is one of them, but it certainly feels like it. This is kind of your standard prism map that you might think of when you think of a prism map, which is basically a scattering of prisms. But I think it makes this list for a number of different reasons. First off, there was no parts that were really frustrating. It flows really well. You might be able to SS on your first try, but you might play it 10, 50 more times to try to get like a top time on this. The art is minimal, but it works really well, and it works great for co-op.
Yep, I pretty much agree with that. I'm not sure that he made this one specifically for co-op, but it definitely works as a co-op map probably fairly well, so. Yep, well made by Twinkie. Alright, number 8, we have Soda Pop by Lindley. This map definitely more focused on kind of walls, I guess, rather than tons of prisms. But of course, Lindley loves his prisms, so there's still plenty of them. And, you know, lots of managing what air charges you have, and, you know, lots of maplering on the ceilings and making sure that you get enough distance to go off of them and things like that. Lots of wall cancels, and yeah, just an overall fun map.
Yep. I think I kind of persuaded maybe Bird to include this because I really, really like this map. It was really fun to play. It's one of those that might be kind of hard to quantify, but it's like I got a lot of enjoyment out of playing this over and over. Next up is Chameleon by Indapop. This is an awesome map. Indapop really excels at making air control type maps. It's kind of I feel like, you know, besides boost and dash maps, I feel like it's his like second fundamental map that he often makes. This was nice because it had the different colors for the blocks, I guess you'd call them, that either have dust on them or that you're supposed to land on them. So it kind of broke up the monotony of the green. It had a really cool background. The gameplay worked really well. I really liked the ending climb. I feel like I'm just saying a lot of things that I really liked, but yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. I think this is one of the more fun ending climbs of the year. That definitely kind of popped its head, you know, into a few maps that they maybe got inspired from Yada, you know, a little bit, and you know, did a climb to the end with a lot of prisms. I think that kind of came in as a theme in a few handful of maps over the course of the year. All right, number 6, we have Eterna by CZYYS. Another kind of maybe not as super heavy on the aesthetic as Vaporwave was, but similar. You've got the purple and the yellow again. I think this one actually looks better in terms of the actual color palette. You know, it's a bit more, I don't know, somber colors, less like neon. And yeah, just a fun map. CZ, you know, always makes these pretty solid kind of maps focused on the gameplay pretty heavily, and yeah.
I think MSG brings a good point up in the chat that a lot of these air control maps you could say they're tech because they're focused on, you know, constant resets of your air charges. So yeah, there's a lot of bleed through, just like in probably the overall, there's a lot of bleed through to, you know, art or some of the other categories, I'm sure. Okay, next up is Deceit by Hourglass. I'm a big fan of Hourglass maps. I don't think I've ever played an Hourglass map that I did not like. So no surprise that Deceit makes it on here. This is number 5. Yeah, this was just a really fun map. It had an interesting start in that you go one way and quickly reverse directions. It's not, you know, totally original or anything, but it worked really well. I really like how Hourglass kind of puts prisms, which you might see me do on my own maps. I guess I was really influenced by Hourglass's design. That kind of like point you in the direction, but don't like just totally restrict your movement. You know, they kind of like aim you in the right direction to go, but don't purely cut it off, if you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think this map also could have probably fit a lot of multiple categories, probably tech, probably fast. You know, it was kind of like half boost map, half air control map. So it's kind of hard to pick, I guess, between those two. And but yeah, well-made map. I think it was fun to play, even if it's maybe not super strict on the air control section. Whoops, I started playing this replay early on accident. At number 4, we have Blueberry by Sunny Day. Let me restart the replay here. Sunny Day didn't make very many maps this year. I think he has at least one other one in our list somewhere, I'm sure. But I always enjoy some Sunny Day maps. I think he has a pretty unique gameplay style. He really likes maps that like loop over themselves after a while. And yeah, I think he spaces his prisms out pretty well, and yeah, just an overall well-made, you know, interesting map. I really like the aesthetic of it as well. Kind of a unique, I don't know, look to it theme, visual theme.
Yeah, I agree. I think the other one that I've seen on the list that he had was Kid Out. I don't know if you caught that. But...
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Number 3 was Interplay by Indapop. This actually kind of reminds me almost of Hourglass's maps. I think that there is some kind of overlap here. But it's one that you can almost include in the fast category because there's a lot of fast movement. My favorite thing by far, though, about this map was the fog trigger changes as you go through. I haven't checked in the editor, actually. I don't know if those are like timed up from the, how often they're timed up to do that, but they're like a really nice touch.
Yep, I would agree. I don't think I actually like consciously noticed the fog trigger changing when I was watching the map, probably because he was moving so fast and things like that, and I was paying attention to the gameplay maybe a bit too much. But yeah, definitely sort of similar to an Hourglass map. Indapop kind of, has his own style, I guess, thrown in there, and again, maybe not strictly an air control map. It kind of could maybe be a few different things, but a fun map nonetheless. All right, number 2, we have Wildflower, also by Indapop. I think this map is definitely more of a strict air control map, and it's pretty short and sweet and to the point. I think its visual aesthetic is also really cool. I really like the background. I can't actually tell like what it's supposed to be, maybe exactly. It's kind of like a swamp. It's kind of like this enchanted, like, I don't know, fairyland. Yeah, the map looks great. It plays great. I don't know. I don't have much more else to say. Man. It's a wildflower. That's right.
All right. Number 1. This map is... it's Redshift by Indapop. So there you go. Indapop, I think, dominated this category, especially the top 3. I think all these last maps were Indapop's maps. Honorable mention to C because I believe C did the artwork for this one. But I really love the color palette. Like something about that red and the black, but it's not like, a harsh black. It's like maybe like a dark gray or something. I'm not good on my color names, but something about it just works really well together. The gameplay works really well. The background is interesting to look at, and it breaks up kind of just having a blank white background. It wouldn't be as fun. It adds a lot of depth to it. It's just, I think, a really, really solid example of a fun map that focuses on air control.
I'm throwing you under the bus for this category, by the way, of the maps not being maybe as strict air control as people would like, but that's okay. Yeah, this is definitely...
Timmy's definition of air control.
That's right. But yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you said about this map. It looks great. The background's interesting. I agree. It's not like super just, harsh white, harsh black. It's not FFFFF as the X color or whatever. It's kind of like a dark gray, and there's a bit of lighter grays. Kind of, it's this cloudy background. I think it just looks visually, really nice. Minimalistic with the colors as well. And yeah, definitely is more of an air control map than some of the other air control maps. All right. We are down to the overall category. So I'm going to actually let you start this one off.
Okay, yeah. So we got the overall category, the moment you've all been waiting for. I want to say something real quick before we start this, is that, as we mentioned before, there were so many maps that could fit into other areas. This is just, we'll have like a total list on Reddit that you can see, some of these other maps that didn't get included, and, maybe you're in other areas. But, yeah, these are some of the either funnest maps of the year, best well-made map. There's a lot of different reasons it can make it. You might see very different maps on this list in the overall category. But I think everyone has some aspect that they excel in as part of this. So,
before you start,
40.
also, by the way, we mentioned that this is our kind of like combined list. I'm not sure if Timmy's like 100% going to commit to it, but I'm at least probably going to commit to it, where I'm probably going to release my own like separate list of, my personal list for all these categories and things like that as well. And he might alongside it. So there were definitely, there were a ton of good maps this year. I'm not really sure if we maybe mentioned that as much as we should have, but this year had more maps than last year. Definitely a lot more super high quality maps. A lot more map makers putting out a ton more just quantity of high quality maps. You had C, you had Lindley. Definitely a lot more people got involved this year. Last year was a bit kind of all over the place, spread out with different map makers and things like that. And this year, I felt like there were a few people definitely leading the charge on Atlas high quality maps and things like that. So this list was way harder to put together than last year, even if it was just me doing it and not in addition to roping another person into this undertaking, maybe without necessarily them realizing what they were getting involved with.
Yeah, I agree.
But
yeah, it took a surprising amount of time to narrate. Like, once I had all the maps on there, you probably guys wouldn't believe how long it takes to actually pick the top one because there's so many good ones. Number 40 is Galicia Prime Warzone by Mirk. Now, this is coming in number 40. I do want to mention something here, is that as Bird mentioned, it was our combined list. So what we did is we kind of averaged our scores. So I really enjoyed this map. This was visually, I think, one of my most favorite maps. There are some elements that I think it does lack in, some Mirk maps tend to do, but I think this is one of the few maps that actually like made my jaw drop when I played this. You know, there's just so much going on. This was, without the use of any like crazy dust mod stuff, as far as I'm aware. No scripting. So it's just fantastic, to look at. I think I died many times just watching the background when I first played this.
yeah, I think the background, the lasers, was the most visually kind of striking thing on first impression of the map. Like I said, it was our combined list, so I really liked it for the art. I didn't really like it for the gameplay as much. Mirk has his highs and lows with his gameplay sometimes with me, I think, where some of the maps I just fall in love with, and some of the other ones just kind of don't really do it for me. I'm not really sure why, but his maps are pretty much always going to be visually pretty impressive, so at the very least, they're worth playing for that alone. Alright, number 39, we have Midnight Summit by Nearith. So, you might notice that this is a stock map, and Nearith, kind of known for maybe making his stock maps, that seemed to be a popular map type that he enjoyed making. I really enjoyed this map, so I enjoyed it enough that I ended up putting it in overall. And Timmy actually ended up agreeing with me. It's maybe a bit too similar to Summit, but I really enjoy it nonetheless. And yeah, not much else to say. If you enjoyed Summit, you'll probably enjoy this map. It's kind of like Dark Summit if it wasn't super harder, I guess. It's not Dark Force Summit, it's just a darker Summit at midnight.
There you go. Number 38 is Fortress by, is it Giamma? And
I normally say Giamma.
Okay, by Giamma.
Or Giamma.
Oh, well, now you're just...
I don't know.
Great. So this is Fortress by Giamma. It's a really short map, actually. I think it's like under 10 seconds or something. But it's really fun. It's almost like a mini version of like Tower mixed with like Moon Temple or something. Remember, my stock map knowledge is not the best, so forgive me if I throw me under the bus again for my stock map knowledge. But yeah, it was really fun and really well done. It's very small, it's very quick and very short, but it like does everything well.
Yep, I pretty much agree with that, and I think your stock map knowledge was on point. So you're above the bus this time.
Yes.
All right, number 37, we have Abandoned House by Lindley. The visuals on this map are kind of really low-key, but still really nice, I think. Especially the background, the lights. He used that in at least one other map, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, it's kind of just what you'd expect from a Lindley map, but I think it's pretty well made. If you don't like dealing with bears, maybe Lindley is not the map maker for you, but...
Yeah. It's got... And this one could be in tech gameplay, I suppose, as well, you know? But I really like the design and the use of props and visual design here on this map. Okay.
Can you undo on the dock, by the way?
Oh, sorry, did I mess up something up?
There we go. Okay, we're good.
Okay. Number 36 is Snake Juice by Lindley. Interesting name, by the way. Snake Juice is got a really cool visual design to it. It's got like, once again, it's got a ton of a mix of prisms and actual like real enemies, but it does it well. There are some maps that maybe not included in here, so probably not gonna mention them, but like it doesn't always work well when you have to like juggle enemies above spikes. But I think that this one accomplishes that well. I really like the like design of everything here.
All right, I have to skip number 35 here, so I'm gonna let you go ahead with 34 because we accidentally duplicated a map. Wait, we duplicated another map. How did we do that? Okay. Well, we're skipping then to Unit 7. Sorry, this is a top 38 production value on this. This is what we get for doing it at the last minute. All right, this is Unit 7 by Indapop. I think this is kind of a combination of his fast map style and his more air control style, where you've got, the attacking dust blocks and things like that, and keeping your speed, while still, not just being solely about the boosting and not just being solely about the air control.
Yeah, I really like it. There's a really cool secret too that changes the fog triggers to the left. I don't know for sure, but I think C might have worked on this a little bit. C and Indapop often work together on a lot of their maps. Yeah, next up is Caged, speaking of C, by C. This was a really cool map. I really liked the theme of this and the way this played, and I almost wanted to include it in stock because of the way it looked, but then I was like, wait, this is not really like any stock map. But it's something about it is just really unique and really interesting. Yeah, the gameplay is focused on hitting these enemies in the cages, hence why it's called Cage. The background is great. I remember battling this map with a couple of people on stream for like a full day, so it's got a lot of replayability and it's really fun.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. I actually really like the visual design of that map. Snow maps I kind of think are hard to do and make look well. Mirk, I guess, is most known for kind of pioneering, making snow maps look really, really visually impressive. But I think C does a good job there. All right, number 31, we have Burden by Timmy. So again, I'm all on my own here because Timmy's going to be biased. But I really enjoyed this map. I think the background is really nice in that it's kind of like a faded from the more, I guess, harsher like contrast above, and then it kind of fades and blends in together as you get further down towards the bottom. The blue is really nice. It's a pretty challenging map, I guess, focused on air control for the most part, but not super, super difficult. And yeah, pretty fun.
I do want to say one thing. C did help me with the art quite a bit.
I could see that.
Yeah, so I can only say that I worked on the gameplay. Well, I mean, I did work with the art a little bit, but it was like 80% C. All right. Thank you for that. Floral Design by C is coming in at number 30. This was a really cool map because I think it was like reminiscent of no, it wasn't an album cover. It was a design that he had taken off the internet. He did some other maps around the same time that were from album cover references that he like made a map based off of. And I think this wasn't one of those. It was just a random image that he found that he liked. But it's really cool. It's almost abstract in a sense, but yeah, it's got really interesting gameplay.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. I'm not actually sure what props he used to make the flowers, but they're pretty unique, I think. Like, I don't think I've seen anybody else use the props to make flowers that look like that. And the little dots as well. I like the little like pillars of darker color beneath the platforms. I don't know. It's just it's like visually interesting enough, but still fairly minimalistic, as kind of C's style always is. All right, number 29, we have The Slums, also by C. So a departure from C's more maybe abstract visual style, more similar to a stock map here. Yeah, C doing kind of this sewer-themed city map. It's kind of run down, everything's more rusted and, falling apart maybe and not well cleaned or well maintained. So they definitely could use some janitors to go through.
Yeah. This, I think, starts kind of, and you'll see this ahead in the list, is where C's maps turn to more like, I don't want to say realistic, but more like kind of stock map style maps. We'd had a lot of categories, the last couple of categories here that were like, focused on air control or gameplay or something like that. So you probably saw a lot of C maps similar to that. But C really makes really good looking like stock style maps as well. And they're not going to show them off in the stream, but there are a lot of great secrets I'm sure you guys know about in some of these maps, especially this one. Okay, next up is Good Evening by Lindley at 28. This was one that I was debating where to put this one for a while, actually, because it has some very interesting parts to it when you look closely. I think at first I kind of missed a lot of what was happening in this level, and I didn't quite understand it, but the more I played it, I think my opinion shifted, if I remember my initial stream of this. It's got this really interesting thing at the beginning where there's like a rose hidden behind like a wall, or it's like kind of in a jail cell almost. When you die at the end, hopefully the replay shows it, but then then you shift to inside the cell, and then the rose is outside. So it's like little touches like that were really cool in this map.
Yeah, I agree. I'm playing another replay here for the people who maybe didn't see it the first time. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the map is trying to say, but I can tell that it's trying to say something, and I just think it's kind of an interesting thing, even if it's only for a neat little visual payoff and there's not much more, there's nothing more to really get about it. I just think it's a neat, well-made map regardless. I'm wondering what they're tallying in chat, because it's got to be something that I'm saying, but I'm not sure what it is.
Maybe they're counting the times that they were like the top replay or something. But no, because Indapop was the top one on that one. I don't know.
All right, at number 27, we have Drift by Timmy. Oh, I haven't heard this sound before, or this song, I mean. Must have gotten added with Dustmod. But yeah, another air control map by Timmy here. Cool visual style. It like sort of reminds you of like Cotton Candy with the colors. It's maybe a little bit different. A similar visual style to this is in another map, which might be coming up later. Not sure. And yeah, just a fun map. Well made. I was kind of on my own placing these, so these are maybe a bit more biased to my tastes, since Timmy, abstained from placing his own maps, which I think is fair.
Alright. And C, once again, did help on the visuals. I gotta say that. Number 26 is Indapop's Sanctum. I really, really love this map. This is one that I was debating putting higher up in a different category, but I moved it to the overall because I thought it was a great overall map. In doing so, it kind of moved it down on the list, so this could have been higher up in a specific category, I guess is what I'm trying to say, probably the single screen or something like that. But yeah, it was absolutely a total blast to play, essentially. I really like the movement, how it kind of spirals through the level. It doesn't just go up and down or left to right, on the single screen. And I thought it was a great map.
Yeah, I agree. If this was in the single screen, it probably would have won for me, or very close to it. I would have to go back and look. Lots of the choices end up being tougher than you think. But yeah, definitely one of my more favorites. Not much to say about it. Well done by Indapop. Alright. At number 25, we have The Jaunt by C. So this map uses these, like, sort of teleporter orbs, I guess, through Dustmod. And I think it's a bit visually hard to tell which one is going to lead to what, so you kind of probably have to have played the map before. think it utilizes them pretty well.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about. We're not going to show it on the stream because it's like 10 minutes worth of exploring. But if you go to the left at the beginning, there's a crazy amount of secrets. If there was a secret category, this would probably be in the top 3 with some other maps that are still coming up, actually. But it's got all kinds of nutty stuff. It's got like physics triggers, it's got shrinking, it's got apple juggles, it's got wind manipulation. I mean, the map itself is even teleport based, so it's got a lot going on to it that's not just a single screen map. But even then, just in that single screen, it's still a really fun map. Okay, next up is another sea map, Red City. This is a map that is based off, well, it's obviously got the communism themes going on in here. So I'm not sure exactly if it's like from a movie or something, but it's really clever. I especially like the brooms and the banners. But I mean, it's literally called Red City, so, you know, Privyet, comrade. We have, I think, a lot of great work with the visuals in this map. I think the snows were nice touches. The snow was a nice touch in some parts of it. Yeah, I don't know what to say about this map other than it's really, really fun and it looks amazing.
I pretty much agree with all of that, so moving on. It reminds me of V for Vendetta a little bit, although
oh yeah,
it's more of a bit pleasant, I guess, bright map. Number 23 here, we have Duality by Sea. This is a very interesting map, kind of more of a story map, maybe not as gameplay focused. Visually, just looks really awesome. I really like the color palette on this map with the red, like, blood spatter on hitting the enemies. I like that it's not just fully pitch black. There's like a soft gray outline to things. I think kind of just adds to the somber mood of everything, especially if it's a more story focused map.
Yeah, it's got an interesting narrative that's not. I mean, what you see in the map is what you get essentially. There's no like hidden secrets to it, but it really, like, if you actually kind of explore the themes that it's talking about, it's actually really interesting. And the blood with the sub layers was a really nice touch to enforce that. All right, next up we have a Mirk map, Forest Temple. I thought this map was really awesome. It uses these light rays in the same sense that we saw on a few maps. I forget which specific maps, but I know we've definitely seen it on a couple at this point. Every time I see those, it is like, it's just really cool. I don't really know what else to say besides that about those light rays. The map itself, I think works really well. This is one of the Mirk maps I think that actually has really good gameplay. There was like one spot maybe that was kind of awkward that I remember, but I think for the most part, this is one of Mirk's better maps in terms of both gameplay and visuals of this year.
Yeah, I think as I mentioned earlier, Mirk maps can be hit or miss, and this one was definitely more of a hit. This is one of my more favorite end rooms in a level. I agree that it was a little bit awkward in some parts towards the beginning, but the end room is like one of my favorites that I've ever seen on a map. And yeah, the visual detail that Mirk is known for, of course, always makes his maps pretty impressive, and so they're definitely worth playing. Alright, number 21. We have White Rose by Indapop. I really like the visual style on this map. It's a pretty short, fun air control map. The flowers, the foliage that he did with the props. It's a really nice minimalistic aesthetic, and I really like the background. It's got this crazy design to it. Yeah, this is just looks great, plays great, fun map.
The flowers, I know you mentioned in that other sea level the use of the flowers in the background. This is another one that's like somehow he made props that like look exactly like flowers, and it's really well done. I love the color palette on this level too, I just want to say. Okay, let's see. So we're in the top 20 now. So we're well, yeah, if it was 40, we'd be halfway home. But
Yeah.
we're in the top 20. So we have City Gardens by Sea. Another sea map on here. This one is has, I think, it's kind of a culmination of pretty much everything we've come to know from Sea at this point. You can see that some of Sea's earlier maps, I think, had a different gameplay style than maybe this map had and some of his more recent ones. He's kind of adapted his gameplay style to be a little bit different, I think, recently. But yeah, this map was fantastic. The visuals are great. You can go almost to any section and kind of just stare at the background. You can explore. There's lots of really cool secrets in this level that I won't ruin, but there's kind of a cool story that's going on as well. So yeah, this map was really awesome. It was a little confusing at some part where you have to do loop arounds. I remember getting a little bit lost on like which direction exactly you're supposed to take first. Probably just me being dumb, but otherwise it was really fun.
Yeah, I think it could have been a bit confusing for the routes. It does loop back on itself a couple times, or you show dust on screen in one section, but aren't actually supposed to go to that section immediately, and you go back to it later, you know, around the other way. It's kind of maybe a bit hard for a first learn, but I think it's a very fun, well-made map. Number 19, we have Mountain Hills by Flora Green. This is sort of almost like a stock map, but it's fairly different at the same time. It's very visually similar, you know, there's lots of little visual details, but it of course mixes forest and mansion in the beginning, and then this is this weird cave, you know, virtual section with these crystals, and it just looks visually really, really impressive.
Yeah, it's got some really nice changes to it. I like the transition. It did have an awkward dust spread, I think, at one point, but other than that, there was, you know, I liked everything about this level. So, one little nitpick. That brings us to Facility, number 18 by C. I feel like I've had like 5 C maps in a row at this point. So, Facility is a great lab map. I think this is one of the first maps that I played where I really took notice of how well he could do like a stock map style, because his maps before this were like, I think we saw Burning City, and while it was really pretty, it was kind of more experimental in its visuals. This map has these really cool like blue, like, I don't know, plasma or something running through like sewer pipes and things at the end, which I'm sure you'll see on stream eventually. You see like people or like NPCs in these little test tubes. It's got a lot going on to it, as you can imagine. It's got some really cool secrets to it. This map has a lot going on for it. Even the 80%, I believe, is pretty fun. So it does everything well. I think this is a map that I consider to be one of the top maps for me.
Yeah, I think I can't say much more to it. There's lots of different sections. They're all pretty different from each other. You know, it kind of transitions and progresses as you go through the map. And I think it maybe was a bit longer than it should have been. It feels like things were maybe kind of a bit too spread out in some places. And, you know, you had to kind of fit them together, but number 17, we have Lithium Flower by Shinrikoa. This visual style, another flower theme, I guess became popular this year. These cool, like, lavender pastel colors are just really nice to look at, very pleasant. I feel like this map would smell nice, which is maybe a funny thing to say. Yeah, just well-made map from Shin.
I think what I noticed is that this is not like Shin's gameplay style. So I checked the Atlas page, and yeah, Hourglass did the gameplay for this, which makes a lot of sense. So Shin did the gameplay, and then Hourglass did the art. I'm sorry, I had that backwards, but yeah, it was a really great map. I think probably could have made it into, dare I say it, air control, less to fish, throw me, or yell at me, not throw me under the bus. Okay, next up is, if I can pull back up the list, is Ancient Garden 2 by Neerath. Did we have, we had other Neerath maps at this point, right?
Yeah, several.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, I remember him, I think he was big on the stock maps. And this is a map that probably could have made it into stock. I think it was just a little too far removed from Ancient Garden, as you can clearly see from the gameplay. It like has that almost visual style, but the gameplay is like nothing like Ancient Garden almost. But it was a really solid all-around map. It does, once again, everything well, except for maybe one awkward death thingy. Death zone, that's what it's called.
All right, number 15, we have Inner Temple by C. If the replay would load, there we go. One of the last maps made in the year came out December 30th. Could have been in single screen, but it's in overall because it's just such a good map. You know, it's good in so many ways. It's got a really, I don't know what I would call it, what I would describe it as. The secret in this map is really maybe not complicated, but definitely cool the first time you see it, and kind of a puzzle, you know, to figure out. Maybe you can find a Twitch clip on Timmy's stream potentially of him completing the secret and getting the payoff, I guess.
It might be like 2 hours long, because I think that's how long it took me to figure it out. Yeah, it's really interesting. So if you watch an Apple replay, I think you'll see it, because it's part of the Apple percent. But yeah, without any reading it, it involves things that I didn't know were possible with Dust Force, basically. At this point, I feel like I should know that, but still, C is surprising me.
With Dust Mod, anything is possible.
Yeah, at this point, it certainly seems like it. Bathhouse by C is number 14, is the next one on the list. Just on repeat with the C maps here. This one, I believe, was in a CMR, and I remember specifically in Discord the reactions that people were having, saying this map was beautiful, like, you know, just... which I don't know if like that was to be expected of C at that point, or maybe people were still just kind of in awe of how pretty it was. The only thing that I think that some people may have been an issue with was, of course, you have the standard trope where water kills you. So as long as you're okay with that, the map is fantastic.
It's hard to know that water kills you watching the replays, so I didn't actually know that.
Oh, yeah.
I guess you can kind of tell. Some of the water doesn't have like flowing bits, I guess, emitters placed into it. So like the waterfalls don't kill you in the background. You mean the pools beneath you. I see.
Yeah,
I see now.
Yeah.
All right, number 13, we have Forgotten Library, also by C. If it hasn't been clear at this point that C makes a lot of really, really high quality maps, it's becoming more and more clear as we go on. Yeah, definitely, probably, you know, very few people have made like a stock inspired map of Library. I don't really think people relate to the books very much, and it's very easy to just overload on the books and you know, make the entire map just be a wall of books. But visually, you know, he breaks it up a lot. It's kind of this old, gigantic, like, library building, I guess, that you're going through. You know, you're kind of almost going through, like, the rafters going through in the middle of the shelves. And...
yeah, I love this map. I just want to say that. I'd probably say that a lot, but I really, really, like, this map is great. I think the background is the star of this map, to be honest. Alright, next up is another C map, Subdued City. This was a really interesting one because it was inspired by I believe, either a book or a movie. I don't know if C actually confirmed. It might have been by multiple dystopian type of things here. But, we're seeing, oh gosh, Equilibrium. I'm really bad with names right now. That book,
1984?
Oh gosh. Yes, 1984. Yeah, it's got so they're basically living in a color city. It's got this own narrative where, it's got this whole dystopian thing. I'm not going to go through it, but it's really cool because it's not just about going through the map and just playing through it, but you also can explore lots of different things. So even though it isn't gray, and I think that might have been one of my initial complaints until I understood what the purpose of this map was, and I was like, oh, this actually works really well for what it's trying to accomplish.
I just think the security cameras are really neat. That's about all I have to add. All right.
It's an awesome map.
Number 11, we have Giant Step by Blue Eyed Rat. So I think the theme of this map is that you're actually a giant on these smaller islands. The trees are pretty small in comparison to you. I'm not really sure I got that you were a giant immediately, but it's definitely a cool, fun map, fairly unique. I think it was kind of visually hard to tell the foreground from the background in some places. The background should have maybe been faded a little bit more to differentiate them. But yeah, fun map, cool theme.
Yeah, nothing to add. It was an awesome map. Really did it. Really accomplished what it was trying to set out to do well. Okay, number 10. So we're cracking the top 10 here on the overall. So we're really getting into it, and I think we've said this before, but especially when you get to the top 10, you really could have almost any of these in any order. Just depends on your opinion, but I think it's hard to argue that these not are objectively well-made maps. Just maybe it comes down to your opinion, of how much you like them. So number 10 is Sacred Grounds by Murk. This was another one of my, obviously at this point, it's another top Murk map. This one did the background really, really well. I said this just a while ago, but I really feel like the background is the star of this map. The church, I think that's what it is, in ruins. It's got these really cool boulders and stuff in the background. And even it's got this little castle. It reminds me of Super Mario in some sense, but yeah, it's got these boulders in the background that I don't know why, but that's the thing that stood out to me. How he used the props and stuff to make cliffs and covered with grass and stuff. It's just an excellent use of prop creativity.
Yeah, this is one of the maps I think that feels most like an actual ruins of maybe, some civilization or something with the cliffs and things like that. It feels like it's straight out of, a mystery, or not a mystery, a mythical, fantasy, ruins or something.
Yeah.
Maybe not quite.
Like Oblivion or Skyrim or something.
Right. I'm trying to think of the actual real life, one of the seven wonders of the world or something. This ancient civilization, made this castle and now it's all run down and there's, I guess they're not weeds, but plants growing up, and the cliffs have grass grown over them and things like that. It's a really cool visual style. All right, number 9, we have Inner Courts by Lindley. Whoops, that's not the right replay.
Uh-oh. Spoilers?
No, I just played the same replay again.
Oh, okay. We're saved.
Yep, there we go. Inner Courts by Lindley. Of course, Lindley's gameplay, as we've mentioned several times already. This is one of the more visually detailed Lindley maps, I think. He spent the most amount of time on this one, potentially. Super detailed, lots of cool prop usage, things like that. Very kind of technical gameplay, but not super overly heavily reliant on it. Yeah, just well made.
Yeah. Lindley's one of those people that if he actually tries to work on the art, it usually ends up being fantastic. But I think he prefers to make quick, virtual maps in his free time. Okay. Number 8 by C, The Void. For a while, this was my favorite map of the year, I think, throughout maybe the first half of the year. So it just goes to show you that since then, there's been a lot of great maps in the second half of the year. Yeah, I really like The Void. At first, it just felt like kind of another, I don't know, it just felt kind of empty, right? It's another gray map. I didn't think much to it, but then I kind of once again I started looking into it a little bit more. It's called The Void. You start exploring the secrets and you really start to explore the narrative of what's going on here. And maybe I'm kind of a sucker for this, but Dust Force is a largely non-lore or narrative-based game. Some people might argue about the lore in Dust Force, but it's kind of a nice touch to actually have a story sometimes and themes going on. Plus, the gameplay was out of this world.
And we won't spoil the secrets, I guess, but this map definitely is heavy on the secrets as being kind of part of what makes the map so good,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
All right, number 7, we have Violence from Vox Animus. This is, I believe, the only Vox Animus map this year. And man, what a surprise this was, because this is like super unique. I mean, I don't think there's any map that looks like this. The gameplay might not be the most original thing, but compared with the visuals, this map is just such a surprise. And yeah, I wish Vox Animus would make more maps.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of. I mean, I've seen Dust Spread before, but once again, I haven't played all the custom maps forever. So this is kind of the first one that I've seen where it's become such an important part to keep combo throughout this. It was really cool. Number 6 is Stargazing by C. This map was. This is a Dust Mod map, so you have to have Dust Mod to play it. And I pondered including this in the Dust Mod kind of thing, but that was more for specific like plugins or scripts or something. And this one has moving trees. It's hard to see because in the replay they don't just stand around looking at the trees. But yeah, you can see the trees moving in the background, so there's actual movement of props. If you played some other C maps, I don't think this is the first time that he's done it, but this is the first time I think it was done on such a large scale. It's absolutely beautiful, the trees that he uses, and it's almost like. It's almost hilarious because you'd have to spend so much work to make stuff look that amazing before. And I mean, I think C, not to discredit C because he does put a lot of work in here, but it's amazing how much better I think the movement of the trees looks as opposed to a static tree.
I think the thing that amazes me the most is that he built the trees and things like that out of smaller props, and so he had to have linked them all together, and some of them bend they curve almost fairly naturally, where some of them curve more with the wind and some of them are more stiff on like the base of the trunk and things like that. And linking all that together, I really don't know how he did it, and it still amazes me, but it looks fantastic. So okay, we're into the top 5. You better buckle your seatbelts in, because this is a big one. So we have Cyber Complex 2 by, I guess, the community. I don't know. Maybe you can name off every single person. I believe they're at the end when we get to the end, but that's not going to be for a while.
Well, there's at the beginning. So actually, are you planning on watching this entire replay? Or
yes.
Okay. Well, yeah. So I guess I can talk for a little bit here then. So this was made by Lindley, C. Next would be Glime, then Skyhawk, Murk, Matter Monkey, and me. And it was a community effort, so if you guys have played Cyber Complex 1 by Arcane or Arcade Gunner, I forget his specific name.
Arcade Gunner, I believe is it.
Arcade Gunner. He made a really, for his first map ever, he made like a 10 to 15 minute long map. It was just insane, who does that for their first map, right? So it kind of started out as a meme. It kind of started out as a satire or a parody, but Lindley asked in the Discord, if we could make a Cyber Complex 2, it would be longer and better, and more memey. But it kind of turned out that okay, we abandoned that idea and then went towards actually making everybody working on their own section and actually making it decent. Lindley's section is first, and Lindley was kind of the creator of this idea, the originator of this idea, and the one in charge of most of the aspects of this, although a lot of other people did contribute, by the way, Indapop, Shin, so there were a lot of contributors to this part. I think that we might have to break down every single section because it's done by different members. Each has their own strengths, but what I like is the different variety that you can experience. You have a lot of basically, you see the Lindley Tech gameplay section, as we've come to know it as. In Glime's section, you'll see some boosting. I'm getting ahead of myself here. You see a very C-style prism map. Um, I think that there were some downfalls, of course, the longer of a map that you make. So, this being, I think, right around 8 to 10 minutes, depending on how fast you go. I think JM's run here is sub 8 minutes, just barely. It's like 750 something. But when you have a longer map like this, it kind of lends itself to mistakes. It's just like when you have a big open world game, you might see more bugs just because it's harder to control for those things. Now that being said, I think that overall it's okay. I don't think there are many major problems with this map, and in fact, I have a blast. I still play this map, every now and then, because there's just so much in it. So as long as you learn where to avoid dust spread and how to do each obstacle, it's a great section. Did you end up playing this map at all?
I've tried to play it. I don't think I've finished it yet. I don't really think I have the patience for it to do it all in one sitting, maybe, unless I paused and left my game open. But I'm just not playing Dust Force as much in general. But yeah, I think it was definitely, we haven't had very many huge community projects like this. Certainly not all in one map. If we do, they're normally done in a separate nexus from each other as their own standalone maps. I think it's also important to mention, I wanted to mention Arcade Gunner's original Cyber Complex map that this maybe got inspired from. In the art category, which is the honorable mention that I mentioned at the very beginning, that we're going to mention now, because we're not going to watch another 9-minute replay alongside this. This is just the one, so we're going to mention them both here. And he did a lot of cool, interesting designs in the background, especially around the supers in his map. And so, I just thought it would be neat to shout him out for that. And I guess he kind of inspired a project without knowing it. And yeah, we are going to watch the whole thing. I think it's kind of important to recognize, everybody's section that put a lot of work into it, clearly. And some of those, unfortunately, are at the very end. So.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting, as you see we move through the sections here, how each person's gameplay style and art style kind of influenced each section. Right, so we're in Skyhawk's section right now, and his was kind of a foresty theme, how you're supposed to be up on the branches and stuff and moving along. The section before that was Glime's section, and that was kind of that horizontal boosting section I said had a lot of. And so I think everyone kind of brought their own element to this. I'm actually curious to know what Arcade's Gunner reaction to this was, if he's seen this. I think he's since made maybe one map since then. So I know he's still somewhat active, but yeah, we're in Mirk section now, and you can see that the art is amazing. By the way, if those trees only moved, that would be amazing. But still, they're amazing nonetheless. Yeah, this, let's see. Is there anything else that you really wanted to say?
No, I don't think so. I'm cool to kind of just let it play out, I guess.
Okay. I'm trying to think here. I think the goal for each map maker was to make about a minute-long section, which is quite of an extensive undertaking in itself. If you've made maps, making a minute-long map is not a quick thing. This was done over the course of about 6 months or more, so it wasn't we all just decided to create a section and it was done. People went on to other projects. It's almost like Dark Force, right? I think that some people might have had an issue with the differences between each section, but I mean, that's kind of what it was trying to accomplish, essentially, is everyone makes their own section. I think that so we're in Monkey section right now, and we're coming up on the end here soon. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think it would be awesome to have another kind of community project like this, be in a somewhat different sense, but something in this style.
Well, I think comparing it to Dark Force or a custom map nexus is actually a pretty good comparison, because even the normal hubs, which are 16 levels each, when you're playing through them without nexus movement and things like that, if you're just totaling up all the ILs, those are probably, I would say, around 7-8 minutes ish. Mansions maybe a bit longer, closer to 9 minutes or something, but if you're measuring it that way, it's basically like you guys made an entire 16 level nexus, or longer maybe even. I think something else to mention is that you can tell that each area was kind of made by that person, but they all do fit stylistically together. Which maybe that was kind of more of a happy coincidence that you all happened to have similar enough styles to each other that that could work.
Yeah. So this is the final section. This is my section. Um, it's clearly the best section. No, I'm kidding. But the ending where it changes here, you'll see in a bit, where it changes to clouds. That was another thing that Lindley added, because we had like no like ending. We're like, how do we end such a long map? You know, you can't just have like a prism. So he kind of added a final section. I think it was a nice touch, you know, to stop the rain and then have it in the clouds and stuff. But yeah, this is kind of a really cool group project. And as you mentioned before, there's lots of like, you know, community-driven projects like Dark Forest or CMRs and stuff, but I don't think everything combined into one like flowing level like this.
What an ending.
I don't even remember who talked.
You're up for number 4.
Okay. Number 4 is Midnight Graveyard. This was, I mean, this map is amazing. Once again, at the surface level, you might not notice. I mean, okay, it does still look amazing at the surface level, but it's just like some of the other C maps where if you actually explore and you know, do stuff outside of just the natural flow of the level, you'll get like, you know, exponentially more appreciation for what's going on here. So this is obviously a Halloween themed level. It makes extensive use of dust mod scripts and well, those two main things. There is parts where I'm not going to spoil it too much, but there are parts where literally people are moving, and there are parts where you have to like actually explore. It's the closest thing I've actually come to an adventure map. I know there have been some exploration type maps where you have to go out and find it, but this one actually like had a quest in it that you had to complete objectives to do. You had to go out and find those objectives and then turn them in. So that's all part of the secret. Once again, it's not part of completing the level, but it added so much. Like I appreciate this level, you know, so much more, and it was amazing. And on top of that, the visual of just the natural level was excellent. Really fits that Halloween theme.
I pretty much agree with all of that. I think it's, you know, that visual outline that we used or we saw earlier on in Quartz, I want to say it was, you know, makes a return here. It's also on the enemies and used more in the background, and you know, whereas if Quartz looked good on its own and it was basically like 2 colors, you know, this map is just way beyond that. So yeah, not much to say about it. It's just a really good map. All right, number 3, we have Thieves Highway by CZYYS. And I believe this was in kind of partnership, collaborated with Mirk. And visually, of course, impressive as always.
Yeah, if you've played the Thieves games, that's what it's inspired by. I think CZ is a really big part of the Thief community. So that was his inspiration here. I remember this map blew me away when I first played it, because CZ, only other map before this was like a tutorial type map where he like tried to redo the tutorial of the game, and it was like okay, right? Like, but you know, this map is like totally out of left field from him after that, and it was just amazing. Especially doing kind of a cooperation with Mir. It's probably delayed and probably past this, but on my screen we just passed by the chandelier room where there's like the people below, and if you fall down, you die, because you know the whole thing is you're like trying to sneak around and be an actual thief. There's so many references to the game here, like the clock tower at the end and everything, or the bell tower rather, not clock tower.
Yeah, I agree. And this was one of the first few maps of the year, I want to say. Fairly early on, like maybe not the first 5 or whatever, but fairly early on in the year. So yeah, definitely a surprise.
Yeah, it was like, yeah, I just love this map. I would highly recommend playing it and playing Thief if you haven't already. Okay, number 2 only 2 maps left. We have a sea map. Who would have thought? And this one is my favorite, I think my personal favorite sea map of the year. I don't know where you stand on this, but this is Signal by Sea. This one is heavily inspired by kind of horror science fiction, and specifically the Alien franchise. I think there's even a specific reference to the ship at the beginning of Signal. Or you might have to go left, like you might not be at the actual spawn. You might have to, you're not gonna see the replay, but yeah, there's like, I don't want to ruin too much, but there's a lot of references to like the Alien franchise and everything going on here. The reason I also included this in my overalls because, or in the overall, just me, but is because it was a longer map as well and a more challenging map, so it wasn't just something it was quick and one and done. You really got to explore. You really got to play the map. I really like when you complete a map and it's really satisfying. And this map is, is that case. I think that like this map does so many things well that it's really hard for me to name all of them. And it also kind of really introduced me to C's gameplay style that was more like that gameplay tech style that we were talking about, where it's like fast attacking, kind of more reminiscent of CZ or Lindley actually. But yeah, it's a great map.
I don't have much else to say alongside it. Certainly a long map, so we're still watching, but
Okay. Yeah, it's like I don't know. I feel like I'm gushing, but yeah, it's a great map. It's number 2 on the overall. It's got to be good.
That's right.
Yeah, I actually was considering putting this in the difficult, because I don't think it has that many SSs, and as you can clearly see from the length and the obstacles, it's not easy.
Looks like we're at 7 SSs on it, so yeah, pretty tough. And only 16 completions, so yeah. All right, number 1, the number 1 map of the year. Are we gonna see some guesses in chat? I don't know. We'll drag it out for a little while longer, as much as we can. All right.
I don't think anyone would guess this.
Maybe not. I don't know. I feel like I could have guessed it maybe, but of course I'm part of the one who made the list. So, the best map of the year. Number 1 in 2017. Combined, sort of, between me and Timmy here. And first off, I want to just say thanks for doing a lot of the work. Well, not all. I don't know. We both had to do equal amounts of work because we kind of did everything separately until the very end. But yeah, I enjoyed that you came along for the ride and helped me out this year. All right.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for having me.
Number 1.
Sorry, I was busy memeing in chat.
That's okay. All right. Number 1. We have Blau Shards by JM. And JM made it pretty high on my list last year. I forget which map exactly. I actually think I had a couple maps fairly near to the top of my list last year for overall. This map, though, I just love this map. I don't know. I don't even have things to say about it. I feel like I just irrationally love it. It reminds me of a lot of different maps, like Hope from Dust Creeper Giamma, I forget. Sort of reminds me of Ascent. There's a bit of Ruins in there. There's lots of different maps in here. It's just good. It's just a good map. I think it's fun to play, pretty interesting to play. JM's gameplay style is fairly unique. She's not super heavy on the, tech side of things like Lindley or anybody else, but doesn't shy away from it either. You can definitely experiment and get creative and use lots of advanced tech in her maps.
Yeah, so kind of an interesting story. This was part of a CMR, and this map flew totally on the radar for me because I was actually racing, I think, this CMR, and I think I SS'd it first try, which is kind of a testament to how well it actually flows. If you play this map, at least with Dustworth, but I think with all characters, like, it flows amazing. It's one of the best flowing maps I've ever played. Everything just works perfectly. But I SS'd it first try, and it was like one of the earlier maps, so I didn't give it another look until like a week later, and then it kind of grew on me from there. And the more I played it, the more I really enjoyed it. It's I think it's one of those instances where it does everything well, like not just well, but like exceptionally. And there might be other maps that have more like tech gameplay style or more like boostiness, but I think this is one of those that just fits that overall category #1 spot well, because it doesn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, I think it kind of maybe understatedly does everything really well. It's not super flashy, it's not kind of, an attention-grabbing map, but it's one that, despite maybe not being as attention-grabby, you could come back to it a lot and still enjoy it, almost every single time. Playing it as every different character, any percent SS. I don't know if there's apples or secrets, but you could do a ton of things with this map, and it's just a fun map to play. Whatever you like doing. Alright. That is going to end the Custom Map Awards for 2017.
Yeah. Can I give a few shout-outs?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to everybody that not only comes to my stream, but is really helpful in the Discord and on the stream chat and everything. Dustforce community is fantastic. Definitely the best gaming community that I've ever been in, and I've been in a few before. So everybody's really helpful, everybody's really fun, everybody memes each other, but it's all in good fun and in good humor. Huge thanks to all the people working on DustMod constantly for mostly free. Hashtag donate to MSG555. Yeah, putting in the tools like really stepped up the maps this year. I think not only were people getting more involved, and you saw a lot of community effort to start up the CMRs again, start up Nexuses again, which is fantastic. They've kind of taken a break. Maybe as soon as Indipop gets back from his trip here in a couple weeks, or I think a week, we're planning on doing the CMR 53 soon. I think we have about 10 maps. So if you guys feel a sudden map making urge, go ahead and submit a map or get in touch with Indipop. Yeah, the scripting and the plugins are great, and I just hope you guys keep making maps so I can keep doing them in the weekly review. And lastly, I want to say thank you to Bird for having me here.
Go follow Timmy, because he does weekly Atlas review streams, and if you like custom maps, just watch those. Just be in his stream, just talk and chat. I don't really have much else to say. Timmy stole my speech.
Sorry.
Alright, but yeah, thanks everybody for hanging out. Sorry we were late doing the stream, sorry we were late this year. It's almost the end of January or whatever, but yeah. I didn't realize how maybe larger of an undertaking this would be this year compared to last year, and kind of got ahead of myself on schedule, I guess. But yep, thanks everybody. See you later. Enjoy 2018 with many good maps.